We'll see. We'll see how bad it is. Once we start. It's so weird because I keep wanting to change the. I think that's going to change our angle, and it doesn't.
Yeah,
but it's just because that's just
coming
the
off
computer.
there.
Yeah, exactly. Do you like how professional my setup is?
You know, it's funny because this is a normal setup.
Yeah.
For most people nowadays, and you get great content.
That's it.
But you look at the movie studio when they came to our office, and over the top. They had lights like inches from my face, and at one point they were trying to film it. It was like a full-on commercial.
Oh, well, that makes sense though, because that requires more. That requires more sort of like film and TV stuff, magic stuff, and then the makeup thing I never understood. What I used to do with the makeup was, you go in. They're going to get killed by makeup artists for this, but so you go in the morning. It's like, hey everyone, and they put the makeup all over your face, and then they go, thank you very much. You go outside, and then I wipe it all off.
Yep.
And then I would go to set, and if nobody came and fixed my face, I'd know that it didn't matter what they were doing with the makeup. So I'd be like, no, I'm fine for touches. I'm okay. And I've just wiped everything you apparently put on my face off.
And nobody noticed.
And no one noticed. But when they catch you, ooh, they don't like that. What did you do? I'm like, nothing.
Sweating. Sweating the makeup off.
So James, this is James from MTX Technologies. And I'm David. And we thought we'd go live because we're having a lot of fun talking about cybersecurity and stuff. It is a field that is kind of near and dear to my heart. We're talking about this, how I originally got into it. Not even hacking, but it was like way, way back with the idea of getting phones to ring on subway platforms. And I used to, you would pull into the station. Beverly's going to laugh at us. Beverly's here too, but we're not. But she's decided to not hang out with the grandparents. So you'd pull into a subway station. I'd jump out. I'd dial the number, and then get it to ring, and then try to get back on the train in time. And so the idea being trying to get them to ring all the way home, basically. Great way, so they can track you exactly, so you can they can definitely find whoever it was who was responsible for that. But that got me, because I was suddenly like, oh my God, there's these networks that are being used in ways that I would not have planned, that I didn't know. Like, it was like, oh my God, there's a whole world in there.
Yep.
Which got me. How did you get into this stuff?
I don't think I did it on purpose. It really kind of started where I built my first computer at 8, and so I always kind of played with tech. But back at that age, everybody was going in tech. So in my terrible wisdom, I thought if I tried to go down that path as a career, it's not going to be any jobs because everybody's doing it. What a terrible foresight that was.
You figured it was, well, that's it.
Yep, it was going to be a fun hobby.
The market is saturated, forget it.
So I stuck with it as a hobby, and then I went down a different path for a while. Injection molding, did that for probably 10 years.
Really?
Yeah, did that for 10 or 15 years.
What aspect of injection molding were you doing?
Set up process control.
So you're running the machines that were doing the actual...
I would set them up, and I'd troubleshoot them, and all of that stuff. Obviously, early in the career, running the machines, but delved past that into the setup and troubleshooting them, which was... The science behind that stuff was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it?
That really is a great career, and I loved it. And then 2008 came along.
But that's got to be automated, too, though. Like, at this point, there can't be many... Yeah, it's all robotics now, right?
Which is, from the spot where I was, that was okay, because... I was setting up the robots, troubleshooting, it dropped apart, or configuring sensors to grab for certain things. So it was really exciting. There was a good career, and then 2008 came, and the market kind of started tanking in the manufacturing sector. And so I decided, well, maybe it's time to take a change. So I took that away, and I jumped into my hobby, which is always IT, which I was always kind of doing on the side anyway.
You kind of get dragged into it, don't you? Once you've expressed any kind of interest in it, you end up you're kind of screwed.
Exactly. So I went and I actually did a diploma to get my network engineer just to show that I had something for the industry.
Oh, because this is something you said before, with the idea that if you understand networking, you understand everything. That's the key to everything. So that was the first thing you took, was a network.
Yep. So I already knew the stuff, but saying you know this stuff and actually getting through somebody's front door for a job was...
I got a piece of paper that says I know stuff.
Yeah, I had to get the paper to open up those doors.
Right.
And so that's how I got into doing it as a career in place of, a hobby. And what I quickly realized from doing that was there was a whole world that, I didn't give a whole lot of thought to appreciation to before that, which is watching all of these businesses get hit with cyber attacks and all of this stuff happening. And I realized it's actually kind of exciting. And, obviously if I say something's exciting, most people get nervous because it's not exciting to people being attacked.
Right.
But I thought, this is kind of neat. It's you get to be an investigator. You get to be kind of security guards. You get to combine all sorts of really exciting elements, and get paid to do that.
And learn about all these systems as well.
And learn
Yeah,
about all
yeah,
these
that's
systems.
fantastic.
And so that's when I went to the company I worked for at the time and said, "Hey, we need to have an MSSP offering to give to our clients."
Okay, so you got to help me out on the terminology stuff, and because there's going to be this. We're all great nerds, but we don't know all the terms. So
Yeah.
MSS.
So there's managed service provider, which is MSP. They're kind of your day-to-day. They do all of your support. And then there's MSS.
So they're looking after. So basically doing IT for your whole.
Yeah, exactly.
They're now. So IT is now MSS.
So now the cybersecurity part is managed security service provider.
I knew I'd screw you up. I
Yeah.
knew eventually if I asked enough about it and said enough of the wrong M's and S's that I'd mess you up.
So the MSSP is a managed security service provider,
Right,
and they
okay.
typically have just a focus on cybersecurity and not so much the day-to-day operational IT support.
But that's not what your company was doing when you got there.
Right. They were just that managed service provider, day-to-day support for clients. And so we launched that, and quite frankly, the adoption in Canada was quite terrible, actually. At that time,
Canada's we're so trusting. That's
we
the
do
problem.
fall behind the States a good number of years for adoption in different tech initiatives, and including security.
We don't have as much money. To be honest, there's not as much money, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's not. Yeah.
We don't have anywhere near the budgets up here, and quite frankly, most of the best stuff for that is U.S. based, and they don't give us good pricing in Canada because once you start converting stuff, it's not that profitable.
That's why the film industry's up here, because we're cheap.
Exactly.
I mean, sorry, I shouldn't say. Well, we're also very talented and all the rest of it. But we're also, we got tax credits and stuff, and that makes it, we're appealing to the States for that. I guess that would happen with what you're doing as well, I guess. People going, wait a second, we hire the Canadian guy, and he's like a fraction of not a fraction, but he's got, we save ourselves whatever the exchange rate and stuff.
Yeah, so what I found is we started getting traction, and then the business sold. The company I work for sold to a much larger company.
But they weren't doing this originally. So they weren't originally doing it. You set it up for them, or you set it up for them to sell?
So we set it up for them to sell.
Oh,
I
okay.
ran it for about 5 years.
Right.
And then I guess it shined lights in the right people, and they thought, hey, this is a good company to buy, and so they bought them.
Oh, wow.
And
So you lose a job. You set them up, make them incredibly successful, and then lose your job.
yes.
Wow.
I mean, I shouldn't say I lost my
No,
job.
no, but I mean-
I
but
did,
yeah, but
only
yeah.
because I chose to
Right.
not stay with that company because I didn't like the model that they had. So I thought, well, okay, maybe it's time for a change. I've been here for a decade. It's time to do something different.
And were you training during that time? Were you participating in different training things, or were you just learning yourself? Like, it was just all...
Combination of both.
Yeah.
No formal training. Going through vendor stuff. A lot of self-taught. I mean, a lot of hours.
Is it
reading,
still... I get the
researching.
sense it's still a lot of self-taught stuff.
It doesn't end.
Yeah.
I mean, if you try to follow the news every day, you see just how quickly things are changing. And for everything you read in the news, there's got to be a lot of technology changes to protect against those types of things.
Remind me to
never
ask you
ends.
about that later, because I'd like to know how you're keeping track of this stuff. But okay, so you set them up, company gets sold, you're like, screw this, I can start from scratch and do way better with my networking certificate
Yep.
and 10 years of experience doing this. You set up, was this MTX you set up?
Yeah. So
oh, wow. Oh,
so
okay.
I did a short stint in
This
another
is your
company.
first business?
Yep.
You really?
Yeah.
You're supposed to go under. That's what don't first businesses like.
We almost did. At month 12, we had a company go bankrupt and took almost $100,000. Like our entire profits for the entire year, we had a great year. We lost it all. And I'm like, well, that sucks. How are we going to carry on? And so more money out of my pocket went into it to keep it going because we had a lot of interest. Our growth was huge. And
you
so
just
I
didn't
thought,
have the money right then, so wow.
You start it with all of your capital. And at the end of the
Are
year,
you
I'm like,
good at
this is
keeping those
great.
separate? I'm not very good at that. I always found that I'm like, I made money acting. Let me put it all into Tech Bandits, and then or whatever. You know what I
Yeah.
mean, like I'm always bad at keeping them separate.
I
If that
am.
makes sense.
My wife makes sure that there's a very good line between.
Oh, do you have a Jane? Do you have a Jane?
yeah.
Like
Oh
me?
yeah.
Oh, good.
Oh yeah. Because if it was me, as I've mentioned, I sometimes forget to send bills out.
Yeah.
And then if I wait too long, then I feel guilty, and so I just don't send the bill out and
Yeah.
I eat that cost. So
I'm like, I sent the check. I mean, we didn't have the money in the account, but I sent the check. I mean, okay.
Yeah.
All right, good.
And so I did a short stint for a few months at a MSP that wasn't doing so well, helped them kind of turn things around. And I thought, here I am doing it again. I'm working under the company, and I'm going to make them lots of money.
And you don't get any stake. You're
And
still
I'm
getting just
getting
paid as a
stakes
regular employee. Right. Okay.
Right. And so I just said, okay, I'm just going to go start MTX. So I started MTX Technologies, and I thought, well, how do we become different? We're in a market where MSPs are everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You got to have something unique to make somebody want to work with you. So I took what I did in the MSP space, the cybersecurity space, and I thought, okay, we had a slow adoption there for a reason because those tools are very expensive, and a lot of SMBs just can't afford it. They don't have the budget.
So a lot of the people you're going to are like, "What? How much money to get this done properly?" And it's like, and what does it cost? Like, what kind of money are we talking about here?
We're talking upwards of $10,000 a month.
Jesus, wow! How big are these companies?
We'll say a couple hundred people.
Wow.
Because the tools that go into it are really expensive.
Mm-hmm.
A SIM, you're looking anywhere from 50,000 plus for certain SIMs.
If you don't do it,
and if
you don't have a company.
You may not have a company, right?
Yeah, okay.
So I thought, how do we take those things and actually make it so any business can afford it? And so the journey with MTX is to try to take as many of those tools and then focus on vendor relationships where I can get the pricing down enough that I can offer these as part of just a general service to everybody.
Oh, interesting. So you kind of you could bundle it all together, and then that's an interesting approach. And that's not something other people were doing.
Yeah, no, everybody keeps it separate because, quite frankly, cybersecurity is a moneymaker. If you get into a big business, it's tons of money just flow out into that coffer. It's not great from a business standpoint to find ways to do it cheaper, unless you're dealing in large volumes, right? So it's a trade-off. But from my perspective, the weakest or the most vulnerable businesses are the ones that are 100 people and less.
Right.
They have the smallest budgets. They don't have access to all of the right resources, technology, and staff because all the big guys gobble them up. So there's a huge vulnerable group of businesses that just don't get access to this, and that's why I've tried to change kind of that way of doing it.
Oh, interesting. So you're approaching companies that are like 100 and less, and specializing in that. Oh, that's smart. So you got a niche. You got a niche with that as well. And are your clients basically just Canadian, or are they ever all over?
So all over Canada.
Yeah.
Some of our clients have U.S. based offices and stuff like that. We don't have to do anything there. We're working on one that we'll be opening up potentially a Mexico plant too.
Oh, cool.
So it's like,
oh, wow.
While we technically service all of Canada, if they have offices outward, I think technically we can still do work for them.
Wherever the internet is.
Wherever the internet goes, we can go.
That's great. Okay. That's got to be fun too. The fact that you're looking at companies from all over the world as well as just local stuff. So it's not necessarily a local business. Does it help? Do you find you get a lot of local people to start or something? Is that?
Yeah, I mean,
I feel like that would be
the start was actually in Waterloo region,
right?
And that's where most of our starting clients came from.
Yeah,
and actually, a few of them were people I serviced with the company that got bought.
Oh, wow!
As soon as I put out there, hey, I started this new business, I started getting messages. I want to move over.
Oh, that's great. Okay, they must love you.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
Or they figure at least if I have all the state secrets, keep close to me because I've got all their secrets.
Oh, I see. I was thinking more the company, the other company going like, what the not that James guy again? Damn it. Okay, and it sounds like you enjoy the business as well as you enjoy the running of a business side of it as well as the tech side of it, or no?
Sort of.
Yeah.
I don't like the finance side. I'll be completely transparent.
I know
I'm terrible at it.
Money sucks.
I would, if I could have somebody just do the finance stuff and just leave me to sit and talk to companies. That's my favorite part. I love having an opportunity to sit down and educate people. I don't really sell stuff. I go and educate people, and if they like the education, they say, "Hey, can you do this for me?" So I'd rather go, and we've done that. Where we give free assessments to anybody who wants one, and then we just give it to them and say, "No cost. You can go anywhere you want with this, and this is the list of things you should have or should be doing."
Really?
And we just give it away because we want to educate people as much as we want to land clients.
Well, that's very sort of internet culture too, isn't it? Where you put the stuff out there, and then your support comes from people who go like, "Yeah, well, I trust them because I'm listening to their information," and that's interesting. Okay, that's smart, very smart. All right, so you start the company, you set up, you almost go broke. What year was that?
12.
Geez, in the first year, we just had breakfast. That's why I'm burping away because we had a massive lunch. So I'm just going to sit here burping, and it's going to be wonderful. Jesus, so the first year, that's like a classic startup thing where it's like, because you don't have time to build the contingency funds you need to look after that. All right, so you weathered through that, and I'm guessing you changed the way you bill now, so you don't get
So one of the important lessons I learned from that, and this is where I'm not great at the business side, is I'm gonna obviously learn a lot of these things as I go along through the hard knocks lessons, and I quickly learned that you shouldn't just take and run with a project, put all the investment in. You should get deposits.
right.
Because at least if you have a deposit, you've absorbed some of the losses if the company goes bankrupt. Whereas up until then, it was, oh, we want this project, right? Let's do it. And then I would put all the capital in, invest everything, send it off, do the work, and then...
Because that's the fun stuff. Because all the fun stuff is like buying things and doing stuff and setting things up. No, I get that. I totally get that. I'd be the worst businessman ever. But then if you expand, would you get someone to run that stuff, do you think? Is that something
as I expand, the goal is to get somebody to handle the books every day, the invoicing every month, because I hate doing it. It's like pulling people to sit down, send out invoices. I don't want to do that.
You make Bev do
it fun. She's actually learning.
What? Are you serious? Really? I just threw you under the bus and you're already there.
Yep.
Wow. Okay.
If you look under the bus, she'll always be there.
He's right there. Yeah. It's like my son. Same thing. That's what kids are for. It's basically for taking the blame. Who ate the last of the peanut butter? It must have been Baz. Okay. You're dealing with companies that are 100 people, or how on earth do you monitor like 100 people? I can't keep. It's like a bag of squirrels around here with people like. Like for a long time, Jane had the same password for. That is a long time ago, so don't hack her. Had the same password for everything because she's like, well, I changed the number at the end or whatever.
Yep.
I mean, and it used to drive me crazy because I was like, we're gonna get like something's gonna happen. And how so you got 100 people in a business. How do you keep track of them all?
It's a lot of automation. So the right tools in place follow the devices, and quite honestly, users will find you when they have a problem, but you got to put some constraints. How do you make sure that they're not using weak passwords and passwords everywhere? Or the latest is keyboard walking.
What's keyboard walking?
So keyboard walking is when for example, QWERTY. You might set your password as QWERTY 12345. You're basically just walking.
Basically typing in password as your password, right? Yeah, I see.
So you would just walk the keys sequentially on your keyboard, and that's become a new trend. And so you put constraints to design how people handle their passwords, and then like you creating a password today is very difficult to do. It was hilarity ensued. It was amazing how I basically got to the point where I was about to just put in password 123 because I kept typing it in wrong. But yeah, anyways. But okay. So the password thing has always been frustrating to me because I go like, I've got a million passwords, I've got password managers and stuff. But if I can have them just send me, and why bother with a password if they can just email you a link anyways? Why do we have a password? Why don't you just say, just email me? Like there are some sites I've noticed recently that will just send me, you log in, they say, oh, we sent you a link. And you do the link and you go in and you're in. No passwords. Yep. So that's a new trend.
Yeah.
I'm mixed on the trend. So it's like passwordless security.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm mixed on it. It's new. So I'm sure it's just going to be a matter of time before somebody really creative finds a way to take advantage of some of these mechanisms.
I'm sure, yeah.
Like, all it takes, and depending on how it's done, there are some really clever things out there that I've seen. I thought that's brilliant. Let's see what happens when it's tested against all of the clever people out on the internet. But your example of, you go to log in, you get sent a link, you click the link, and then it lets you through. Well, let's say somebody's sitting on your laptop. You log in, it comes through, somebody else intercepts that email, clicks the link. They got your password down. There's just a lot of mechanisms where I feel some of these methods will come up short because the world is nothing but creative.
The thing that I found fascinating about that specific issue was that if there is a link that says forgot your password, then there's no point in having a password because that's your weakest link right there. That's if they're willing to send you something to temporarily get you into the account, there is no point in remembering those passwords and doing all that stuff. That's why I thought it was quite ingenious to have just them sent the stuff. But as you say, I guess there's until someone will figure something out. Unfortunately, we always find out like a year after the fact that it's
or sometimes many years. Two-factor is still kind of the try, tested, and true. Something you have and something you know. So, for example, a lot of our clients we put a tool on there where they can actually do their own password resets, but it requires their workstation and the tool and a number validation and stuff like that, because passwords are easily, like, you click a password reset, what happens if somebody just goes and resets your password?
Yeah.
So you have to have another mechanism in there that is separate from where the password reset's happening. So we put a tool on the phone that allows the user to use that tool combined with the password reset link to say, yes, this is me, and yes, I have my device.
Right, yeah.
So, I mean, if somebody takes your device and gets your passwords, you're probably in
These
a
things are a
device.
nightmare. I mean, the phones are a nightmare anyways, because you're walking around with, like, that is, so for my phone, I have obviously a good face recognition, that kind of stuff, but for any of the big accounts that I've got, I use the little USB key, the little whatever it's called.
The YubiKey?
The YubiKey, because I'm just like, you know what? I'd rather, like, it's inconvenient sometimes, because invariably, you're like, I just have to text mom. Ah, crap, where are my key? And, I got to go find my, but then you're like, I mean, that way then at least I feel like there's a fail-safe. You know what I mean? But most people don't go to that. Like, I find most people are pretty lax about that stuff.
Yep.
I mean, I'm lax when it doesn't matter. Like, the password we set today for something, I'm like, it really doesn't matter. Like, if someone gets into that account, they've got my email address. Well, everyone's already got my email address anyways. I mean,
and they'll know your name.
And then, oh my God, I want them to know my name. Actually, I get famous like that? That's what I want. Anyways, okay, so, sorry. As always, I go in a million different directions. So if you were starting again now, would you do the same thing? Would you approach it the same way?
I mean, with the exception of kind of the hard lessons learned, I would approach it the same way. I think it's,
You would start your own company again. You would start from scratch. You'd learn the ropes yourself.
Yep.
You'd do,
Like, I never did well in school. Quite honestly, I don't know. Maybe it was a structure. I don't really
can't
know.
have done worse than me, but okay.
Well, I did get thrown out, so I never.
Oh, you got thrown out.
I
Yeah,
got
okay.
thrown out. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I probably didn't apply myself properly in school.
I got disappointed out. They're like, we'd love to have kept you. We wish we could keep you, but you can't because you just haven't passed anything. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not us, it's you.
Yeah.
But
I got broken up with by my school. You got violently ejected from the school. Yeah, I got it. Right.
You got a breakup, I got dumped.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
But I think learning stuff on my own gives me the flexibility, because when I'm learning something, like our conversations go down different rabbit holes without realizing.
I know what you're talking about.
And it's the whole learning process. I like
Right.
learning that way.
Yeah.
I'd rather start digging in and learning something going down a dozen rabbit holes. Structure, you follow a structured training, sometimes you see something in there that makes you want to take this off ramp and go learn something more about that piece because it's relevant here. In a structured environment, you got to keep going down that path. And then if you remember to go back and take that side path, then you can. So I like just kind of grinding out my own learning.
It's so funny because that is so true. I crave structured learning because I crave courses and things. So I can go like, oh great, I can begin it. I now at the end of this, I know I've got what I need out of it. But inevitably, it's when I go for further reading every time.
Yep.
Every time. I used to find in high school, same thing. They go like, oh no, it's great. You really, really know the subject. You never wrote the essay. Oh, write the essay. I'm like, I read 4 of the books by the author and read articles and went and saw them talk and then come back and it's like, yeah, but you still failed because you didn't finish the job.
Yep.
Okay. So learning as you go, is there, I mean, university-wise, is there like obviously there's universities, I can't imagine university hurts in any way.
I think it's great. I think for most people, it's probably good. Now, the difference between college and university is going to be dependent on where you want to go. Like, if you want to get into design and coding and stuff like that, university is probably going to set you better up for that because of all of the coding that they touch.
Right.
College will set you up probably better for what that MSP world, day-to-day support.
If you know specifically that you're going into this, that might be a better approach.
Yeah, college would be a better approach from that because they teach you more practical day-to-day stuff.
And college being like a trade college type thing as opposed to
even like a public college. Yeah. They all have nowadays some kind of networking type courses you can take, and they're great. Okay. And even some of their software stuff is actually quite good. So you don't have to go down the full expensive university route. But if you're going to become a developer and stuff like that, you should go the university route because it's probably a better roadmap.
It also proves, I think, to people, if you're looking for a job, I always feel like it's a better it's a better thing to have because it proves that you can see something through.
Yeah.
My resume proves that I cannot see things through. That I will be bouncing to a million different things. But the idea that you finished a degree is basically like saying, like, look, this is they're capable of getting through this stuff.
Yeah.
And it definitely helps. Okay. And would you take computer science? I mean, if you were at a university, computer science is the way to go, or would you take a business course, or would you take what's the?
I would probably take computer science only because I dabble in programming because it is fun.
What's your favorite language? What do you like language-wise?
I'm PowerShell primarily.
Really?
And Python because they're the most business practical. So you can do a lot of great stuff within PowerShell and Python.
PowerShell isn't like the MS-DOS stuff, is it? It's not like
no. I mean, it's a different programming language.
It's
and you
scripting.
actually,
I've never used.
It's got lots of scripting in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I
fantastic.
used to love scripting for DOS, and Python is my favorite program ever.
See, my original programming was BASIC.
Oh, BASIC! Oh my god!
Way back
yes,
in the day.
Of course, that's Commodore 64. I had to write everything. The amount of time I sat there typing magazine programs into my freaking Commodore 64.
You didn't buy games back then.
Don't
You
listen
just
to this.
typed in thousands of lines of code.
Absolutely, and then go like, "Oops, I deleted it." I mean, yeah, it was. Oh god, I loved BASIC. I loved BASIC. This and it was funny to watch. Just a little sideline. Baz had a project he had to do for school last year, and he had to write a program in Python, and he chose to do a D&D program. And I was laughing because I was like, "That's what I did." It was the first program I ever wrote was a D&D program for my Commodore 64, which would just create a random number and pull up various different stories based on that because it played with the writing and it played with the gameplay and it played with the programming as well. And it's just so funny that we're still doing that, but he's doing it with Python now. And, of course, he's got ChatGPT to help him with that as well.
Yeah.
Which I think is legitimate. We've talked about this before. You don't like ChatGPT, right? For programming.
Sometimes it can overcomplicate things.
Oh, right. Yeah, you said that. I thought that was an interesting point. This is Bev has started doing Python programming and was saying that it makes the programs more complicated than they have to be, right? So I'm only repeating it because just from a mic standpoint, that's all. I'm not trying not to mansplain. What I think you're trying to say, little lady, is I just wasn't sure if people heard that or not. Actually, how is the sound, by the way? Taylor has changed. Oh, did I forget to change the? I bet you I forgot to change the description on my Twitch stream.
Oh,
yeah.
well.
So you better like start kicking ass and waving those little sticks around and stuff, Yeah. Why don't we do? I want to hop in and see if there's any questions here, other than the fact that this is not Taylor. This is great, inspirational, fantastic. Oh, good. There you go. Jophia's already in. Mandy subscribed. Oh, I forgot we got still subscribing people on. I don't know if I'm going to stay with Twitch or not. I'm not sure about. It seems like it's one of those things. I heard that Amazon's having trouble with it because it's so huge. The amount of resources required, and it's making them so little money. They somehow managed to lose money on what is probably the most popular gaming platform out there. Basically, I mean, I don't know anybody who streams gaming. You stream on Twitch, right? Is that?
Yep.
Do you want to shout out? What's your?
It's on Dante XI.
Andante XI. Andante. How do you spell Andante?
Andante.
There you go. So that's the next person you should be watching.
Now, you should quiz him and ask him if he knows what a Dante means.
Oh, al dente, like partially cooked?
Wouldn't that be del dente or something?
Isn't al dente? Al dente is like, isn't it like half cooked or something? Or
It's a music term.
Oh, okay. Then don't tell me. Al dente is softer or something, or
No.
getting louder, getting softer. One of the
It's
two.
more of a speed.
Oh, so it's getting faster or slower. So I'm basically at some point I'll guess the right answer. Is what you're saying, right? So what does it mean?
It means walking speed. But the story behind it is, I wanted a name and I couldn't think of one, and I wanted something to be music themed.
Right. Can you hear? By the way, can you hear Bev? By the way. But someone will tell us in a second. But yeah, sorry, carry on. Yeah.
So I wanted something to be music themed. So I just asked a random friend, and I was like,
There you go.
Thank you. I just asked a random friend, give me some music terms. And then they gave me like the generic melody and harmony, and I was like, I want something, more unique. And then Andante came up in the list, and I was like, this is kind of great, The nickname can be Dante. From the game, I think it's a Devil May Cry. I think it's an older game.
And Dante wrote that famous Dante Inferno. Wasn't Dante's Inferno?
Dante's Inferno. This is on Dante.
Yes.
Yeah.
Your Dante as your.
Yeah.
Okay,
And then one of my favorite movies came out, and one of the songs was on Dante was in the movie, and I was like, you know what? This is just meant to be.
This is fate telling
This
me
is
I
fate.
must be this streamer. I'll bet that.
Yeah.
And what do you stream? What stuff do you stream?
I mostly stream Rocket League. I also love streaming horror games.
How do you do Rocket League? I just get motion sickness. It's like, what the hell? I can't keep track
That's
of
what
it.
Baz was telling me
Oh,
too.
God, no, I can't do it.
Yeah. Took me a long time to get good at the game.
Right.
You gotta be dedicated.
You gotta be dedicated.
You gotta be
I'm not
dedicated.
sitting there with like a bucket throwing up. I gotta keep going. Doctor says I have to. I can't. Yeah.
Yeah.
That and also horror games.
Yes.
Oh yeah. They're the
Big
best.
fan of Phasmophobia. I
Oh,
found
yeah, Phasmophobia,
I
yeah.
was big into it because when the game first came out, it was made by one developer, like a single person coded the
Yeah,
entire
totally,
game.
yeah.
And I was like, this is such an inspirational thing. Like, I would love to do that at some point. And then he got so big, he was able to get a team, and I thought, you know what, this is like, it's inspirational.
It's kinda neat, yeah.
And I love the game. It's a really good game.
I haven't played it for a while. It's just the one with the flashlights. You got to turn the flashlights
Yeah.
off and on. You got to find it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny actually. One of the first. I'll turn this back so we know. One of the first things that I tried in my Unreal programming course was programming a horror game. And it's the same thing where you program for a little flashlight and it's actually a pretty neat. I was going to send you those links too. Because Bev has been using Unity, and I've just got to get her onto Unreal, with the cool kids. You know what I'm saying? All right, sorry, but we digress. Bev, we're trying to have a conversation here. For God's sake, stop being more interesting than us, would you? So Bev is James's daughter, who's actually the brains of the operation, I think, by the sound of it. So yeah, we should do a fast group. What do we got? I wonder if Elton John is any good at Rocket League. Him being a rocket. Oh my God, Canadian geek. That is terrible. That is like the worst dad joke. That's worse than my stuff. Okay, another big fan over here. Thank you, Lizzie Best. That's very good. Unless you're a fan of James, and then, well, screw you. Losing money through Prime subs. Yeah, no kidding, huh? Okay, so I should change my YouTube thing. All right, so I'm going to ask you a question, and then I'm going to go to YouTube, and I'm going to change you from. This is magic. I'm going to change you from being Rachel to being you. So my question would be, of the stuff that's out right now, one of the ones we haven't had a chance to talk about is this. What do we call it? CrowdStrike? CrowdStrike. Was it CrowdStrike? It could have been CloudStrike too, for that matter. But the CrowdStrike one, I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on that, because I was amazed that got through. Like, that was just a programming issue, right? Wasn't it?
Yep. So what happened? They have,
and I am listening. I'm just going to do the YouTube thing while I'm doing it.
That's perfect.
Right,
so there's sensors that they have that kind of detect all the malware and that.
Right.
And this update had so there's supposed to be 22 sensors. And this update had a 23rd sensor in there that wasn't supposed to be tied because there's only 22 of these. Now, I'm probably butchering the explanation because it is very technical in code and probably even over my head. But what happened is they obviously couldn't have tested this update, or they automated the testing probably through some AI process.
Right.
And
you think it might have been based on? You think that might have been the issue?
I don't think it was human checked. I think it was AI checked, and it should.
Don't
never,
tell Bev; she already
because-
hates it.
Yeah, I have a story on AI and what my prediction is for the future there. That'll be interesting. But so what happened is when this update went out on boot, it was checking all of these sensors,
Right.
and then it would hit 23, but there wasn't 23. And the way the operating
it'd
system
freak
is
out.
designed at the kernel level is if it's at the kernel level and something goes wrong, it's designed to blue screen.
Right.
To prevent further corruption potentially of the OS and other data. So
Right.
it's designed to do that. And so
It's
they
designed to
couldn't-
blue screen.
to protect the system from further corruption.
Oh, really? You think it would have a little more elegant way of doing that than just going like, "Duh!"
The panic mode.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think they used to call it that in some cases. But essentially that's the point of it, is it's designed to full stop everything so you don't corrupt anything. Which was also part of the problem. They couldn't have tested it because if they put it on a single machine, they would have had this problem immediately and
Right.
recognized that it was going to cause that problem. The fix was where it got interesting because now everything's in a boot loop.
Mm-hmm.
And
So it's basically just Going like starting up, oh crap. Starting up,
Yeah.
oh crap. Yeah.
Virtual servers, stuff like that, they're easy to fix. You can get into them in kind of remote, into safe mode and remove the key. But what do you do with all of your remote workforce? We're heavily remote in this world now.
Right.
And so now you have hundreds of thousands of people all working remote, and so they're carrying laptops. All laptops have BitLocker, so they're all encrypted. And anybody who's looked at a BitLocker key knows they're really, really long, and Bev can attest to that because she's had to type a few in her day.
Really?
And it's a really long key, and then you have to, so now if I'm to fix a user who's really far away, I have to walk them through putting in the BitLocker key. This is after I've recovered the server that actually has the BitLocker
Oh my
key.
God.
Then I have to try either walk.
So literally you're going like B or V? V, like literally,
Yeah.
like,
It's all numbers, but
because you don't want to send
essentially-
them, you don't want to send them that online because you just, that's as insecure as you get. Right?
Yeah, and then you have to walk them through disrupting the boot to get into safe mode. Then you have to walk them through getting to a location.
So
where
wait a
you
second, so
can
you're
read it.
manually doing this?
Yeah, in a lot of cases, until Microsoft actually worked with them to create a automated fix, which you still had to send users.
Oh my God, seriously?
Yeah.
They're like, okay, we got to go reboot that, whatever, like a sky tracking computer up in the northern Arctic.
Yeah.
You're up there doing that.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
because some systems just would never boot to the OS.
Right. Yeah.
So you would have to boot off a thumb key, and there were a lot of steps to fix it.
But okay, but sorry, but the fact that it's booting to a blue screen of death or whatever they call it now, the fact that it's doing that, I don't understand. Whose fault is that though? Like, is that sounds more like a Microsoft issue than it sounds like a CrowdStrike issue?
Yes and no. So there is Microsoft does need a better system for handling this type of thing and recovering from it.
Right.
Which
right.
they really don't have a great mechanism to recover from that kind of thing.
It's true. Like whenever anything goes wrong on a Windows machine, it just goes blue, and you're like,
Yeah.
that's it. Yeah.
And so, I mean, in an ideal world, they'll just write it where it can auto roll into the last known good state automatically for users and then carry on.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, what does it automatically roll back to the one before? I've seen it do that. to
Hardware
me
does
before.
it. Like switches and firewalls nowadays, they
yeah.
all have backup chips, and if
Yeah.
something fails, it automatically loads up the
And,
last
and
safe config.
nerds like me, one of the things you said on the server that you very kindly gave me was was you're like, just break it, and then you just go back and it reboots, it resets itself. It's
Yep.
like, it was fantastic for that because I broke it many times, by the way.
Yeah.
It did not know what to do with the way I was trying to install Proxmox. It did not like that.
So the mix with Microsoft and CrowdStrike, this sets a dangerous precedent.
Right.
Because CrowdStrike screwed up and Microsoft got a lot of heat for it, the most effective endpoint protection has access at the kernel level. It has to be there to be the most effective to spot any kind of malware. And
The kernel literally being the core of whatever
Exactly.
operating system you're running. Yeah. Okay.
so since then, Microsoft has toyed with the idea of just saying nobody can access the kernel anymore. The problem with that is
But
now you
anti-competitive
degrade
stuff, though,
security.
because you've just said, because we're also yelling at them for being anti-competitive. So if you take away their, oh my God, so they've given access to the kernel to these software platforms. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, no, that is a weird situation.
And
'cause
if you take that away, now the endpoint security
it's
is gonna
only
be less
Microsoft,
effective.
and we know how Microsoft.
But you can still put it on there. But because it's not at the kernel level, it's not going to be as effective.
always going to be, if someone gets the kernel, then forget it. Your
Yeah,
software is useless.
exactly.
Oh, fascinating.
So-
Okay, wow.
We run the risk of things like this eroding security as a whole because
Right.
now everybody seen this. Like, people don't realize bad updates coming out of Microsoft. It's not new. Every
happens
year,
all the
typically,
time.
They do it and it starts blue
Well,
screening
and
machines and then
honestly,
you fix it.
and Apple too. Like we've got the number of times I've got Apple updates that have bricked whatever the app was, whatever the like screenwriting software is notoriously slow to update.
Mm-hmm.
So you update your operating system, and all of a sudden you're like, ah, crap, I can't work on the script now because that's not working or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so what happens is, once they lock that out, you've eroded security, and now the whole world. And so the world's seen this as a big event because it was pretty public facing. It impacted a lot of
because it
divisions.
was a big event. Like it was Delta was down for like a week or something. Although
Yeah.
it sounds like they were doing some.
They chose not to take extra help too.
They turned down the help. They're like,
Yeah,
I'm
free
good.
help.
I'm fine.
Yep.
Yeah.
And now they're going to sue CrowdStrike.
Right. But isn't CrowdStrike saying that? But we've got emails saying, I heard that CrowdStrike has emails from them saying, like, no, we'll figure it out. And they're like,
Yep.
no, you won't.
Yeah. And so here's where it starts getting interesting. So CrowdStrike's made this big public thing, and the cost of this, not counting lawsuits and otherwise, is like $5 billion or something like that.
Is it really?
It's in around $5 or $7 billion, and then once lawsuits roll in, it's only going to get higher and bigger. But that's a small number when you think about all of the good. The CrowdStrike is one of the better platforms out there, and well, they certainly. And there's an interesting part to this, which I'll touch on in a moment. Cybercrime is a $6 trillion, creeping up on a $6 trillion a year business.
We should get into that then instead. That's way better.
We're on the wrong side.
We're
sure.
totally on the wrong side. I'm going to change the title of this again.
So when you look at it from that perspective, it's a small cost that people incurred, but how many cyber attacks have they saved?
Yeah.
How much money have they saved businesses by doing it right all of the time?
Security Now. There was a couple of Security Now episodes where this is the Twitch. I don't want to say William Gibson. It's not William Gibson. It's
Steve Gibson.
Steve Gibson. And Leo Laporte were talking about it, and they would have people would write in and say like, yeah, it was a complete f up. Like it was total flustercluck.
Yep.
They screwed up, big mistake. But here's the millions of dollars that have been saved in the past by them catching stuff.
Yeah.
Because apparently now, okay, sorry, I should step right back then for a second. I'm not sure I entirely understand what CrowdStrike does. Yeah, I'm assuming it was some kind of protection.
So
that,
the simplest term, think of it as your antivirus. Nobody really uses the term antivirus anymore. It's endpoint protection because
sounds cool.
Doesn't just do antivirus anymore.
Oh, I see. Okay.
It does so many other things. Your endpoint protection in a lot of cases.
Endpoint being
firewall,
the actual where you're
servers,
using your
workstations,
thing. Okay,
wherever
right.
you're using. It used to just sit there and look for malware. Now they're firewalls,
When you ran
web
it,
filters,
you have to run
everything.
it. You have to run your antivirus. Like,
Yeah.
I had an antivirus, and I was always telling people, I was like, you can have antivirus if you don't run it. It doesn't, it doesn't do it.
Yeah.
But okay, all right. So it's so endpoint protection, and it is something that's installed on. It wasn't installed on mine, so it was. You have to install it yourself.
Yeah, so it depends on which. So you might be using CrowdStrike, you might be using Sophos endpoint protection, you might be using Norton and Symantec. Like, there's a lot of different ones out there, and it's whichever one you happen to be using.
But CrowdStrike was like it was an enterprise level stuff, or something.
Yeah, it's enterprise level, and it was in a lot of the Fortune 500 because they're one of the bigger players in the game.
Okay, right, okay. So they're gonna get nailed by this, but the reality is, given those trillions we're talking about, they've actually saved some. They've it's worth that risk.
Yeah,
it just seemed like an oddly simple screw up.
Yeah,
like it felt like a little bit like somebody just went send. Oh, what do we send? I mean, whatever.
Try to claw back that email.
Yeah.
The problem with cybersecurity is you can't afford to get it wrong even once, or you get what you've seen happen there.
Right, and the hackers
bad
only have to
guys,
get it once.
They only have to get it right once. They
Yeah.
They can get it wrong hundreds of times and nobody cares.
Yeah.
And so it's a bit of a dynamic that always pits the good guy behind the eight ball, right?
Which is why I'm fascinated by the AI side of this stuff. Because if you've got AI, if you use AI to hack in, like I've literally, I won't name names, but there was I got sent I was watching the Olympics, and there was an ad that was so obviously an oil and gas, rah, we love the planet thing. It so pissed me off that I looked up their website. And I went to their website and I took the source code for their page, and I gave it to ChatGPT and I said, "Is this page secure?" Because I thought I wouldn't do it, but I would have calmed down in time. But my first thought was like, how do I hurt these people? Because this is just these guys are spouting crap about oil and gas that isn't real, and it's so obviously some kind of a political thing. But it did a really good job. It gave me a whole list of things to try that could be tried to do that, which I didn't do. I'm going to stress that again. I didn't do that because I calmed down by then, and also it was really late. But then you could also have something on the other side doing the same thing. So you're basically going to have AI versus AI for cybersecurity. I mean, is that coming into play yet at all, or is that?
Yep.
Oh, really?
So a lot of almost every enterprise class endpoint protection, and probably even in some of the home markets, not as marketed that way. There's some AI-driven stuff behind it.
Like for real, or is it just that marketing? Like because apparently my new microwave has AI as well. I think.
Yeah. So let's define AI.
Yeah.
And let's just say,
let's not call it AI because it's a stupid term anyway.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
AI does not exist.
Yeah.
There's no artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Will we ever have it? Maybe. Maybe in 50 years, maybe much longer, maybe never.
Because AI
It's
is
all
basically
machine learning.
it's what do they call it? General intelligence, isn't it called artificial general intelligence? Is basically what AI would be.
Yeah, I'd call it machine learning.
Machine learning,
Because
okay.
really all it is, it's code that's designed to take an aggregate of data and interpret it.
Right.
So
right.
it learns from the data it's fed, but it's just code.
Right, but if it was AI, it would be general intelligence.
Yeah.
So it would be basically mimicking a human.
Yeah, you would just teach it like a child, this is good, this is bad, and go figure out the world, and it would actively go and teach itself stuff.
But then it would start insulting you and waking up late at the day and
Yeah.
eating all your peanut butter.
Yeah, so it's machine learning is the best way to look at it. So behind most of these, all of the enterprise ones, there's some level of this machine learning that exists
Right,
behind
okay,
it.
all right.
And it was kind of like we were talking, but there's just so much data to process. A human can't process.
That's
quick
it.
enough.
That's
You
the fire
need that
hose.
learning.
I drink out of a fire hose. That's
Yeah.
I always have this image of like I feel like whenever I sit down to my email, there's so many things I'm interested in, like everything, and I feel like I'm just trying to take a sip out of just takes my lip off. Like
Yep.
there's just so much stuff to learn from. Which actually brings me to another question. Have we finished on the CrowdStrike? Did we finish that? Basically, we've done that. Yeah, we covered that. Okay. So, but I was going to say, how do you keep up on this stuff? How do you keep up on all this stuff? Like the CrowdStrike stuff, I'm guessing you read like a white paper or whatever on once you just broke it down. But,
Yep. They released their own basically triage version of what happened, or post-mortem we'll call it. And so that's where I seen kind of what that basic synopsis was of what went wrong.
Right.
And quite frankly, the interesting part with CrowdStrike is their CEO, and I forget the guy's name. He
we won't be there for long, so it's fine.
he worked
maybe he will be, I don't
for,
know.
I think it was McAfee in 2010.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And they did the same thing there, which tells you he was a CFO, I believe, at that time. In McAfee,
that's right, I'd heard
and
that.
they had an outage that impacted 100,000 machines back then. And so what I think this guy does is trims labor down, tries to automate as many things as you can for obviously efficiencies, because it looks great. You know, you increase your profit margins by less bodies,
Right.
automate the testing.
Yeah.
And in this case, it failed. Something failed back in 2010 as well, along the same lines.
It feels like AI should have caught that, though. Like, I would have thought that would be such... Like, one of the things I love about the cover your ears... You don't want to hear this, Pat. One of the things I love about using ChatGPT for programming is that I'll get stumped and go like, what the F am I missing here? It'll go like, idiot, you spelt map with a capital M instead of a lowercase m. Like, stuff that's just... Like, it's so good at debugging, I find. That's that stuff.
But here's where AI is going to, I think, go in a negative way. Now that we know that we're calling AI machine learning,
Right. Yeah.
and all its purposes is you feed it data, and it interprets using the code and the guidelines that you give it, and spits out some great stuff. Now, if I want to break AI, how do I break it?
Give it
Give
crap.
it bad data.
Yeah.
So
And
what
God
I-
knows it's got enough of that already.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Gemini kind of highlighted that when Google launched that initially. And you could ask it how to cook chicken, and it would give you some ridiculously low
Yeah.
unsafe temperature.
Yeah.
So what happens
Or pizza,
now?
if you want to keep the toppings on the pizza, you just put the white paste, that white paste
Yeah.
glue, the Elmer's glue is what
Exactly.
you yeah.
So if you think about it, if you want to break or make AI basically useless, you just have to find a way to force feed it bad data. In the same way, you know, if you were doing a DDoS attack, a distributed denial of service attack, you've got two ways of doing it. You just take one machine and hit another one really hard a lot of times, or you have all of these infected machines all over the world, say hundreds of thousands
Your
of them,
bot army.
and your bot army
Yeah.
then all hits a single node, and it can't process
Just
it quick
takes it
enough, so
down.
it takes it down.
Right.
Now, let's say you take that bot army, and instead of trying to take something down, that bot army is designed to force feed erroneous bad data. The AI is going to learn that and process it and put it in, because it doesn't know it's getting force-fed bad data. So I think that's where we're going to see
Yeah.
AI become a problem
There's
in
that
the future.
classic example of there was some kind of a social media bot. I can't remember which company did it. That they released it in Japan into the world, and it worked fine. It was beautiful. It was well behaved and was very productive. As soon as it got unleashed on social media here, it was basically denying the Holocaust and became racist within a day because it's being fed all that crap.
Yeah.
I mean, that is interesting. I mean, that I do worry about, and the misinformation side of that stuff. The data thing is fascinating to me because, you know, everyone sort of rolls their eyes when, well, all my non-woke friends roll their eyes whenever I talk about bias. But bias isn't just sort of like little snowflake Dave. It's the fact is that we've grown up in a society that had specific views of things that were wrong. Like, we didn't think women could be sports persons. You know what I mean? We didn't think they could be in the Olympics. We didn't think, the women's soccer, who gives, whatever. Like, all those kind of things, along with the obvious, like, racism and anti-Semitism and Nazis and all the rest of it. But so you put that, if you're learning on that data, then good luck getting a loan if you're black and living in a city center somewhere, because that data says you're a bad, like, it's so that bias is going to have a huge effect on
it's
stuff.
called code bias.
Code
and
bias,
it starts at the source of who writes the code, right? What our interpretation of what right and wrong is not necessarily going to be the same interpretation somebody in a different country is going to have or otherwise. And so whoever's writing that code, you don't intentionally write code bias, but you have to write code to process data, and so you write it based on how you think it should be. And everybody sees across the globe things differently, so you get that code bias. So that can change also how data is interpreted.
There's this wonderful example of a Google photo app of some sort that they unleashed, and it just wasn't working. It had these weird random errors in it. And they figured out that everyone on the team was right-handed. So anyone using the app who was left-handed, it screwed it up because it wasn't used to having it was changing so every so often, like, photos were upside down or the wrong way around. It was simply because nobody was left-handed in that group of developers. Now maybe that's being made up, but that was a story I heard, which I thought was just a great example of bias, where you go, like, you didn't even know that. Are you left-handed? Are you right-handed? Like, how do you, like, who does that?
Yeah.
No one. But there's going to be patterns that us humans are we're weird that way. We're herd-like animals. Okay, so bias, CrowdStrike. How do you get this information? You are reading as much as you possibly can. What do you read? Like, are you Security Now and like?
So Security Now is a great podcast.
Yeah.
There's MSS,
it is really good.
MSSP Alerts is another great magazine.
I'm going to write all these down, by the way. Yeah.
The Hacker News.
The Hacker News. Yeah.
There's so many great resources out there.
Right.
And so typically every chance I can, if I'm sitting there picking up my wife and waiting, I'll start reading and staying apprised to it. When I'm in the morning having my cup of coffee, I will read. It's just, there's just so much. I'm sure I barely touched the tip of the iceberg, but it's always just when I have some time, I'm always reading to see what's going on, because it's important to be aware of some of these trends and see what's happening, because it allows me, because I can't afford to miss a story if a client comes to me and says, are we protected against that? And if I don't know what they're talking about, then I have to look like an idiot in front of somebody. So I'm trying to stay apprised of all of this, because we had clients call over CrowdStrike. Oh, are we affected by that? No, you're not directly, but if you deal with anybody who perhaps does, you'll be indirectly affected.
How fast did you hear about that? Was that? Do you get like do you have an alert system that says, "Oh crap, it's about to blow up" or something? Is there like an early? So there's not like a tsunami warning thing for cybersecurity stuff.
No, you really just have to try and follow a lot of the security researchers on X and other platforms.
Damn it, is it still X? Is X still the place to go? I may have to go to X. I may have to go back to X. I haven't been doing a lot of X, and I've started to go back to it. I'm thinking maybe I should.
Yeah, it's a great place to, I make a joke.
We met on
X
X.
we met on X.
Yeah.
No, LinkedIn. We met on LinkedIn.
Oh, we met on LinkedIn. Okay, that's way classier.
Yeah, that's not as much fun.
That's true.
But you connect with all of these people in different industries. Somebody's going to be near the ground roots at pretty much everything happening somewhere. So you just have to be parsing as much data as your brain can do in a day, and that's how you stay on top of stuff.
That was a Python program I was playing with until they made until you couldn't get the code anymore. You couldn't get into you didn't have access to. There was no API, I guess, for the Twitter unless you pay for it now.
Yeah,
so there was a free one that I was playing with the idea. I thought, oh, this is great. I'll just go through and just pick out the stuff that I want, and that's all I'll look at. And then they made it. I was like, I'm not paying for that. Forget it.
Yeah, and that was disappointing when they some of the chops they made are a bit rough, unfortunately. But so that's really it. Like at the end of the day, cybersecurity is kind of like drowning. You're just barely staying ahead of or staying on top of the water. You're constantly just flailing your arms to try and get little grasps.
But that's how I feel. You're a professional. I feel like that, and I'm just a lowly.
It doesn't get easier. There's just so much.
But you've got then how do you take on the responsibility of that? So if you're taking on, if that's the way you feel about it, eventually it's going to be too much, I'm assuming, because there's like there's new cyber attacks all the time, whether it's ransomware or whatever. And in a second I'm going to ask you for a couple of stories because you've told me a couple of fun stories about fun, unless it's happening to you. But at some point I'm guessing I remember this with computers where I was like, I'm into computers, and I was so early to the computers. Like the Commodore 64s and stuff, you could know everything about computers.
Yep.
Like you basically could, not everything, but for the most part, someone asked you about something, you'd be like, oh, that's whatever. Very quickly, I think at the point, it was around the 386 or the 486 chip that I was like, I can't know everything anymore. Like not that I did before, but I felt close to understanding just about how everything worked. Mm-hmm. At about the 386, 486 level, I was like, okay, I'm interested in everything, and I will listen, but I'm not. It used to be I could walk it anywhere and go like, okay, yeah, what do you need? I could figure that out. Mm-hmm. But now I feel like, Jesus, you really need to specialize because there's like cybersecurity itself. Even that is almost too wide a net, isn't it? I mean, I'm assuming there are specialties. There must be specialties within cybersecurity as well. Or is there not yet?
Sort of. You've got your cloud specialization, different cloud specialization. So people will specialize in very, very niche, maybe specific vendors.
So like just Amazon Web Services security.
Yeah, or maybe just the Amazon and the Azure type of thing.
Right.
So people will narrow their focus to certain parts of it.
Mm.
And
that doesn't seem as interesting to me.
It's not. And that's kind of what led me into the managed service space in the first place is if I sat in a single company and did their IT, I'd fix everything pretty quickly, and then it would be bored because it's the same thing every day.
But you also get a paycheck every day. That's the other thing.
You get a paycheck. That's the only upside.
Yeah, right.
That is the
Believe
only
me,
upside.
as an actor, I miss that every so often. I'm like, paychecks, they must be fun.
Yeah, I occasionally get one, and I feel excited. When
right, because you're running your own business, so it's like you're always the last person to get paid.
Yeah.
Unless Bev's on it, and then Bev's got you paid first up.
Yeah. But so that's why I got into it, is because I like the variety. I want to be exposed to as many different things.
That's what excites me about it. Yeah.
And so you don't get a lot of sleep because it's always so much to learn. So you're always reading, you're always learning. But that's the place to be if you want the most exciting job. And cybersecurity is just an extension of the things I like. But the managed service side, the managed cybersecurity, it's just another piece of a big net that I cast out, and I love all of the things that come in, and to try to stay on top of as much as I can.
That is exactly my thing as well. As when we said this at lunch, was that it plays on. It requires acting because you're like there's the whole personal side of stuff of getting information from people or not getting information from people. So you've got acting, you've got storytelling, you've got all the cool computer stuff, which I love. It's got hardware, it's got software, it's got travel, it's got it really has. It's very sort of James Bond somehow. I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. Hey, excuse me. Just in case anyone thought I was getting just verklempt about it. Like, hey, that's caffeine. You know that? Apparently, caffeine makes you sneeze. Well, it makes me sneeze.
I'm kind of curious because I sneeze all day long, every day. I'm always sneezing.
Apparently, caffeine can make you sneeze, make some people sneeze. And it never, ever happened until I was in my 50s. And then all of a sudden, I will have a cup of tea, and I will sneeze twice. I've just had coffee. I will sneeze. Yeah, may not have been related to that one. But anyway. Okay, so keeping track of everything, you're basically any source you could find. Are there any specific ones that, if let's say I was just wanted a couple of big sources, what would I be? What am I looking at?
Yeah. So if you want two of the best sources, if you really need to limit what you're grabbing for, Bleeping Computer.
Oh, Bleeping Computer. Oh, really?
Yep.
So
and the Hacker News.
And the Hacker News. Hacker News I knew about. Okay. But I haven't looked at either. But Bleeping Computer comes up all the time. Who is it? Who's running it? Do you know?
I don't know who runs it, but those two sources tend to be the best for staying apprised of the biggest events. So if you only subscribe to two, those two will at least keep you fairly well informed on most of what's going on.
Right. So when you go to a meeting, you can go yep, I know about that, and then you can look at it more of it later if you need to deep dive on stuff. Okay, that's cool. Okay. All right, so I got to get back on both of those because Hacker News is a fun one. Because I just love how old school it is. It's just so sort of like little text, and I've actually posted a couple of things there just curious. I call it my business porn, where I just listen to podcasts about businesses and how businesses run stuff, and I don't know what it is. I just love the process of people figuring out how a business works or how to make that happen. And I'm incapable of it myself, but I love reading about it. And Hacker News came up a few times on that, as how these companies launched by a couple of posts that did incredibly well on Hacker News. So, all right, the other thing I was going to say. So I've asked about where you get the information from. There was something else. Stories. So you get a couple of stories. I'm going to ask for a couple of them because I think a couple of them are really, I thought were incredibly telling and kind of chilling even. The one that struck me, I think the most was your story about a brewery, and I won't name names or anything because I don't want to get you in trouble. But could you tell us that story about how that worked out? Because that was fascinating.
And actually, that was around a period of time where there was actually a rash of this type of attack, and it's a really exciting attack because it's simple in nature, and so oftentimes it starts with a phishing email, and many people have probably run into this. You click a phishing email, and sometimes that phishing email is designed to just send hundreds of texts to everybody it can find and reach until your email gets blocked, and then somebody has to come in and clean it out.
Right.
And it's usually a mail rule.
That someone is you.
That somebody would be us. And other times what it's designed to do is just create a little mail rule. And what that mail rule does, it says anything coming to here, also send it to me over here.
Oh my God.
And so if they get these on a finance person's computer, which is the golden nugget, is they'll sit there and they won't do anything. They'll just watch all the emails. And we've seen it with, we'll call it a animal shelter. We've seen it with quite a few businesses actually.
An animal shelter?
Yeah.
What, are they trying to get first dibs on the cute kittens? What's going on?
So there's a reason, because it's a humane society type shelter.
Yeah.
And so what happens is, if money goes in there, so that person will sit there and watch all of the conversations that the finance person has. And when something comes up that they see is a big money making endeavor, and it's their time to strike, then all of a sudden the mail rule will stop blocking all of that. Because the email typically will run through a hacker to them. So they'll stop that. And all of a sudden, they'll start responding. They'll intercept the communication. Right. They'll go and register a domain
that sounds
has
similar.
One letter added. So,
oh my God.
Let's say Tech Bandits is your domain.
Yeah.
It might be Tech Bandits with an extra S.
Right.
And because it's so subtle and they follow the conversation, they know how the talking goes between the parties.
Yeah.
So when they intercept it, most people don't even think that we just sent 10 emails back and forth.
It's a $25,000 contract, and
then they'll intercept it and
say,
you
"Here's
don't
the
know
check
that
you
it's
need to
stopped.
make. Here's the check. That's where the check's got to go, or the automatic payment, or
here's where the
we're
money
only
goes."
taking gift cards this month, so if you could pay us.
And so
gift
they'll
cards.
often give them a new bank account number.
Yeah.
And you don't think about it because both sides just got used to having a long conversation, so you don't detect that somebody's just now jumped in.
This happened to Facebook. Facebook was because they had huge bills going out, and someone just changed the name on one of the things and sent it as,
exactly. And so what happens is then they'll give a bank account number, and as soon as the money goes there, then it bounces through a ton of banks until it's shot off seas or turned into cryptocurrency where it can't be recovered, and off it goes.
Oh man! Wow. Okay, so and you're seeing a lot of that recently.
Yeah, so
I never thought of that. It makes so much sense if you can track, and then of course you can use AI on that too, because you can process millions of emails and then train it on. Oh my God, you train it on their chats, then you know exactly how they're doing, and we're on the wrong side. We could be making trillions of dollars. You're on the wrong side of this entirely.
And with deepfake,
don't you ever feel like
the sky's the limit?
Are we? Is this are we plugging the dam here? Like, are we? Is this gonna? It's really just got to get better because this is the way it's looking right now. It's not looking so good for the good guys.
And here's the problem: we all have budgets, and all of our clients have budgets.
I have no budget. I have Jane. She just stops me. She just basically takes away my Amazon privileges every so often.
The good guys all have budgets.
Yeah.
And all of the businesses all have limited budgets. The bad guys don't. And in fact, oftentimes, you'll have ransomware is a really great example where somebody will write the ransomware and they will give it to whoever wants it. It's up to you to get it played out somewhere. We just get a cut of whatever you get. So if you encrypt an environment and the payout is $5 million, they get 20%. They don't take any of the risk.
It's crime as service.
It's crime as a service.
Wow.
Or software as a service, really. There's a whole business model around it. And for them, they don't have a budget.
Jesus, wow. That is wild. Wow. Okay. Go back to our brewery story again too, because talk about things being planted on people's systems. We may not even call it a brewer if you want. We call it something else if you're worried about
and it wasn't even their systems that were impacted.
Right.
It was somebody they were dealing with doing a transaction. It was on the other side.
All right, so walk us through it. So basically, you set up a security system for them on their...
Oh, I know the story we want to talk about. So we'll switch now from that email one to the other exciting story.
The other exciting story. You got two for the price of one exciting story right here.
Yep. Yeah. If it's exciting, it's probably terrifying.
Yeah.
So we set up
exciting.
firewalls.
Whenever James says exciting, just prepare to have like a nightmare.
Yeah. So we set up every firewall that we put out in the field collects logs. We set them up so it's full logging because the only way to protect the environment is to know everything going in and out.
Right.
And so we review these logs every day. And I remember going through logs at this brewery and seeing this weird website would come up, and I don't remember what it is. And even if I did, I probably wouldn't say it here.
Go check it out, kids. Yeah.
So I would see this website come up every day, and it would sit in line with a specific shift. So I knew it was something a specific shift user was going to, or so I thought. And at first, I didn't give it any thought. It was blocked, which is
So you're seeing it basically do its job, which is stopping this whatever this app was or whatever from going out. Okay, yeah.
And after 4 days of this, I got curious, so I went and looked at the app. And what it was a paid service you could pay, and it was a web portal you would log in. You would take this software, and all you ever had to do was install it once on somebody's phone. It would disappear, so you wouldn't see that it's installed, and it basically was a tunnel back to this web page. So you'd log into the web portal, connect to the phone. You could see text messages as they were happening. You could turn on their microphone. You could see their location within 3 meters. It basically gave you full remote access of the phone in real time, listening into phone calls, everything. So essentially, people were using it to stalk.
Yeah.
And it was at this point that I realized, okay, we've got a problem. This person had no idea, so we reported it, and obviously the police got involved and all that good stuff.
But you had to track down who it was. Like you had to go like, okay, well, so it's only happening the time so and so. How does that happen? This is where the detective stuff, which I find fascinating, comes in, where you had to track down to figure out. So this is a shift worker working from so and so to so and so, and of course would come in, plug her phone in or whatever it is, and then or his
Just
phone
on their corporate, like the guest Wi-Fi that they have.
Oh, okay, right.
And so what it would do, we got to see the device. Our logs would say this device is sending this traffic out.
I see.
But we knew it was a shift worker right away because we just did the device name, right?
Right.
So then you have to engage the company and say, okay, this is the device. The person works on this shift because it's in this time frame every day, and then through that process we were able to figure out who it was, and so they were getting stalked, had no idea, and
so what did they do? They just went up to her and said, like, "Can we see your phone?" Or what? Like,
nope,
what did
they just shared the information, and then obviously the police got involved, and that's where we kind of stepped out of the picture in that regard. But
yeah, at what point do you have to bring the police in? Is there like are there rules for that, or there must be something?
not really. I
Really?
mean, you could report
Just
it.
up to
They could
you?
just wipe their phone, and that's the end. In a case like this, it's up to the user to kind of like that person to engage the police because they're the ones being stalked.
Even though it was on the business's network, the business wouldn't have any.
Yeah, there's no liability. The business network actually saved this person.
Oh, right, because they weren't reaching the site anyways.
Yeah, so they had no idea that they were being stalked. And if they didn't happen to just go to a place where we had a firewall tracking the stuff that close, who knows how long they would have been stalked for, what the end
Or how
result
long they
might
had
have
been stalked
or
for.
how
They
long
could have been
had
going on for years. I mean, God, that's okay. So when you find a site like that, like you don't just type that into a browser and go like, I wonder what this is. Like, do you have like a
Sometimes.
sandbox?
Really? But I have
Just do it on Bev's computer, so it's her fault. Is that
So I have a sandbox machine where I do that kind of stuff. I'll go to questionable
And sandbox
websites.
buying, it's not on like so it's on the internet, obviously.
Nope. It's so basically it's a virtual machine.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have any of the virtualization tools put in because virtualization tools could be used to break out of that. So it's
So like on
isolated.
my server, you've created a separate operating system that has no other access except to be able to get to the internet. Or
Except just to the internet, separate network, separate everything. No tools, so it can't even break out of the confines of that.
Right,
And
okay.
so that's where I'll put that stuff in, or I'll go look at stuff.
I have to talk to you about that because I'd love to have a sandbox. There's so many things I want to go check out that I'm just like, I will bankrupt us all if I do this.
Yeah, it's safer. I mean,
Not to?
you could just get an old laptop, for example.
I got old laptops,
That-
a million of them.
You isolate in your home network. It doesn't connect to your Wi-Fi. It maybe has a hard cable out, and it's a separate network range, so it can't touch any of your devices.
Okay.
And you isolate it. And
Then that's your sandbox. That could be a sandbox.
that could be a sandbox.
I could do that
because it's isolated.
Right.
And there are
I
some
feel like
tools.
this is going to go so horribly wrong. Cut to next week. Actor from the 80s.
James is now restoring everything.
Yeah, exactly.
But so you could put tools on that even to basically like a deep freeze of it. So you can just power it off and on, and it reverts back to its original state.
Oh, wow.
So you can go and run amok on it, and then power it off, power it on, and it restores itself.
Amok is one of the things I enjoy running the most.
Of course.
That's great.
It's the most fun.
Isn't it? Yeah. Wow. Okay. So, all right. So I got to put that on my list of things to do. Sandbox. I love that. Okay. So I just love that story because to me that was like such a perfect example of just how all-encompassing this stuff is. I mean, you just go and work at the brewery, and all of a sudden it's like you've got a cybercrime happening. That's cool.
And it makes you wonder how many people are walking around today, because this website had thousands of people on this website, and
oh my god!
So just think of how many people could be walking around even today and just don't know because they're never in a spot where something's looking to see what their phone is doing.
And you're walking around with a microphone and a camera and a
how dangerous that really is.
Oh my god! No, that's terrifying. I mean, you think about like even just from a corporate standpoint, it's got to be terrifying. But from a personal standpoint, that's just really creepy.
Yeah, and it's dangerous. I mean, how many? What was it? There was a few years ago where somebody overseas through one of the social apps was tracked and killed. A reporter somewhere.
Oh yeah,
I forget the details of it now.
Khashoggi or it was I never get his name right. He was killed at the embassy, but they only knew about it because they literally
and they tracked through the social network.
It was an Israeli software called what was it called? Phoenix? No, was it Phoenix? No, one of those. Yes, I remember. Yeah, it's what they can do with the phone stuff is extraordinary, and I mean, was a wonderful video by one of the sort of the classic hacker whistleblower guys who basically talks about how to make a phone safe, and you might as well just put a nail in it because it's just not like it's got a microphone, it's got tracking when it's off, it's got there's what are you using phone wise? You're using your Android, right?
Yep, Android.
Oh, I love the Android
S24 Ultra.
But you got the 24 Ultra?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
You got it too?
Yeah, I hate it. It's so not.
I'll
The
have
size of it is.
I'll take it.
I bet you would.
If you don't want it, I'm willing. I'm here for you. Really, they're such beautiful looking phones though.
They're too big.
They're huge. You're carrying a television set with you.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. I was joking with someone. One of my friends was quite short and had one of the new phones, and I was like, "Wow, it's like you're like carrying an LED screen with you." Though they covered her whole head. Any other story? What can you think of any other crazy?
Just trying to think. I mean, there's so I've done lots of ransomware remediation stuff, and that's always kind of fun because
ransomware remediation. So they've got the ransomware on their computer, and they're like, "Oh God,
what do we do now? And how do we get our business back?"
Right.
And so I find that's a lot of fun. So you got to first go in and do nothing. That was the hardest part.
I could do that.
When a business falls to ransomware, instinct is right away. Let's start redoing everything and as quick as we can get it back up. But the initial stuff is you do nothing. You just look, and you start looking around, and you start seeing stuff. You don't even reboot. You just look because oftentimes the evidence or the clue of how that attack started is still there until you start wiping away the evidence. So you, in some cases, will help the bad guy get away because you hide all their footprints.
Yeah.
So the first instinct is to start recovering, and the first thing should be let's look around. And sometimes you'll spend 8 hours poking around until you find.
But how do you look around if ransomware's got a hold of the computer? How are you getting in there to look around anyways? Or you just go the command line stuff?
So you can still navigate around on the computers, and you can still see some stuff. And mostly logs are important, or in some cases, like you'll find your evidence in the log or a lack of logs.
Right.
So sometimes you get lucky, and it's the absence of data that kind of points you in the direction of where the attack came from, versus finding something.
Because it's critical to find out where it came from. Because if you didn't find out you can do all the cleanup you want. If you didn't find out where it came from, they're back the next week anyways.
Yeah, so. and that actually happens a lot more than people realize. They knee-jerk react. They didn't find the source. Sometimes it might be an email, or maybe perhaps it's a file that's sitting in a thumb drive somewhere, or in the cloud, and you've cleaned everything up and thinking you're clear, and this person goes and accesses this file, and maybe there's a file that's only touched once every 6 months, once every year, a finance file.
Or like a worker's laptop that
that almost never goes on.
Right.
And so all of a sudden, you missed figuring out what the trigger was, and sometime down the road, that kicks back in.
Wow. That stuff terrifies. The other one that we've heard about recently is the sexting stuff, where they'll convince people to take compromising photos, and they think they're in a relationship with someone, and oh god, that stuff is just the whole idea of like of just torturing people with that stuff is just horrendous to me. And it just and again, it plays on all your fears as well. Like it's like a horror movie. You know, the idea that you've got, you know, that there's someone watching everything you're doing. There's like, you know, or in the case of an actor, you're just like, nobody's watching what I'm doing. Why aren't they? They should be. Okay, all right. So, anything else? Any other stories? Anything else you want to talk about? Anything that comes up, or anything I should know? Or
hey, I think really it's just important that people start educating themselves. One of the best things I tell people: don't take nothing for granted. You may work or own a company and you think everything's great and it's been running for a long time, and you know, perhaps you have an established team and you think, well, nothing can happen to us. But as a business owner, the buck still stops with you, and people don't know what they don't know. And if you stare at an environment long enough, you might have missed something. So it's always good every once in a while to get an outside perspective.
Just like an audit, like a security audit.
Just a security audit. Get somebody else to come in and just look.
Do you do that? So you'll come in and do a security audit and say, really?
Yep. So we'll go in. We give free assessments to people. And we just do that as a health check. We'll go in, we'll look and say, hey, you should look at this. Even if they have an IT team, it's just an outside perspective. It's not intended in those cases to try and threaten somebody's job. It's to say, hey, this is the stuff that you should be looking at. And it's meant to help.
But nerds have got to get their backups on that stuff. I bet you've got a lot of IT people going like, no, I did everything right.
Exactly. Yeah. So we do encounter a lot of resistance from that. And that's why I say the owners really need to be the ones to take the initiative and force that.
Right. Interesting. And then what, I guess, but from a security standpoint, though, you're also letting a company into your company to look at, like, literally the nuts and bolts of everything. Like, are you bonded, or do you do what? How does it work like that? So how do you prove that how does a company like you prove that you're not going to be the problem?
And the answer to this is social engineering.
There you go. I mean, he's in my network now.
The reality is, you go in there and you just convince people that they should trust you. And in a case like most established businesses, you have testimonials, you do NDAs and that kind of stuff. Yeah,
right.
The usual stuff. But in order to get through the door to be able to do that is social engineering. That's what
really
sales
so. It's basically sales. That is where you get that. You build the trust just by working with them on a regular basis. Wow, that's just amazing, because you think about it. That's just that's really opening up everything to people. I mean, it was funny. There was one of my business porn podcasts was talking about. There was a photo. They're photo organizers. So, and basically, I thought it was like they'd go in and they'd look through your boxes of photos and they'd scan stuff, as I thought they would do. No, not just that. They'll go through. You give them access to your cloud photos, and they go through and cull your photos for you and organize them and stuff. And I'm like, no freaking way!
It's a terrifying thought.
Yeah, the number of times I take photos of, like, better remember that password, or better remember, like, or hey Jane, does this look infected? That, you don't want that.
Yeah. And photos are a scary thing, because if somebody has, like, open source intelligence is, like, you can take a photo. Like, there's so much you can do with just a simple picture.
Where time of day, where they are.
Yeah, and publicly available free tools. Everybody can access to do that.
Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. No, that stuff's fascinating. That's why I'm going to become a private investigator, because then I can use OSINT tools and not go to jail for doing it.
Yeah, I mean, the tools are available. That's what frightens me, is like everybody has access to all of the things, and so photos are scary.
Bass's friend had this. They'd done one of their friends had done one of these like urban exploring videos, and of course they won't tell you where they are. But they do a video about breaking in somewhere and going up. And look at the view from the top of this building. It's amazing. And within like 2 hours, she'd pinpointed the building.
Yep.
Partially because she was brilliant, but also because she'd it was it's just logical. Just like, oh, okay, the sun was there. You were seeing that from there, so we know it's that direction. What other buildings? Google Earth. Which ones are taller? It's got to be one of the tallest ones there. And I was like, wow, this is like, like we're living in a James Bond movie.
Yeah, and everybody can be James Bond.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And people are so clever. Like, that's the biggest thing, is we're really in a time where you see just how clever people are, both on the good side and the not so good side.
Right.
And it never ceases to amaze me just how clever people are at finding stuff out.
I'm on the fence now because that trillion versus billions, I'm beginning to think maybe I should go to the dark side. Like maybe that's what it is.
There's no good money in the good side, obviously.
Yeah.
We definitely got to find a way to monopolize on the other side. I'm not serious.
No, it is fascinating though. I mean, like but I think once people, like for example, ransomware is one of those interesting ones to me. That ransomware is a bit like the pandemic, where people went from going like, well, you're sick, but you go to work anyways, to realizing that, there's a selfish reason not to spread the diseases as well as that. The same thing happened, I think, with the ransomware, where people suddenly went like, wait a second, this is an epidemic of unto itself. I mean, we've got hospitals shutting down. We've got our Toronto library was down for months. I think they're still rebuilding stuff on that.
Same with City of Hamilton. They're still rebuilding.
The Hammer is rebuilt. Really? Wow.
And they've been down at least 6 months.
What happens? And of course, this wouldn't happen because it would never happen. But if it did happen, like if you have a client, and that client does get hit by something, how does that work? Like, what is that? I mean, tell me when it happens. But is there do you have contracts or something that apply to that? Like, how does that? I mean, how does that? Because you can't be responsible for everyone on all the time. But if it's anything like fixing computers, that I remember, you'd go and fix a computer for someone, and then like a week later they come back to you, they're like, well, now so and so's not working, and you're like, well, but a week's gone by and you've done, how does that work?
Yeah, quite frankly, we don't sell 100% defense. Huh. It's not possible. If somebody really wants to compromise something, they're gonna find a way.
Right.
There's no 100%. Anybody who tries to sell the idea that I can secure you 100%.
Yeah, that house is not. You can't have an unbreakable in-house.
Yeah.
That's the worst talking ever.
So the reality is, you just pick the honest truth and say, it's best ever. We make sure that we give you the right tools to stop all of the low-hanging fruit, the script kiddies, and the lesser skilled people,
and mitigate damage if they do get in.
Exactly, and that's so everything in security is about layers. So you have all of the great defenses at various layers all the way in, and let's say worst case happens, somebody does get hit. That's where your BCDR, your backup disaster and recovery plan, kick in. And it's not just enough to have one; you actually have to test it and make sure it works. It's like
I know, because the number of times I've tried to restore for backup and gone like, well, that doesn't work.
Yeah, it's like a fire drill.
Yeah.
You don't wait until the building's on fire to figure out how to get the hell out of
Jane
the
won't let me
business.
do that, because I keep saying, like, we should wake Baz up in the middle of the night with a loud alarm and then make him climb a ladder. But Jane will not let me do it. Anyways, all right, I'll work on it.
Yeah, I mean, there might be a reason.
My
wife wouldn't wake me up.
My dad used to do that. My dad used to wake us up in the night and randomly, and there was a metal ladder that we had to throw out the window. And I remember the first time we did it, I threw it out the window. Unfortunately, I didn't attach it first, so I just threw a ladder out the window. But it was, and but no, that's a good point though. Like, you need to know, but the problem is, who has time for that? I mean, I guess that's where you guys come in. You guys do it for them.
We do it for them, so they don't have to make the time.
Right.
I mean, there's always going to be a level of commitment.
Off-site backups?
So it's the 3-2-1 rule. So most of our clients, it's the on-site initially, which is their fast recovery.
Right.
Then there's an off-site piece that's
the
not
hard drive
quite as fast, but it's still there. So the days of taking drives off, no longer a thing.
Really?
The reason is, the minute you add a human into it, it's bound to get missed or forgotten or out of sync. Right. So we automate the process. There's an on-premise backup that syncs up to the cloud, and so the on-premise for the fast restores. The cloud is for your building burns down, your environment's destroyed. Now we have the cloud. That cloud allows us to spin clients up within a few hours of full operation, and they can run into the cloud until we fix all of the other stuff. And if it happens to be a fire or something, they can run out of the cloud while we order new hardware and all that, and then we rebuild.
Wow.
And then the third piece for us is the data center then replicates that to another data center that not even we can get to. Only the vendor themselves can get to.
Oh,
and
wow.
the purpose of that is, if somebody I mean, the first thing threat actors do is destroy backups.
If Bev goes evil.
If
then,
Bev goes evil,
yeah.
And that's actually a really good example. We're starting to see insider attacks in various businesses and thefts.
Well, or even just by mistake, you see people coming in to do stuff. Yeah.
But we see intentional. And so let's say Bev goes rogue, and she goes and
Bev
gets into the cloud and destroys everybody's backups. What do you do? Because the biggest threat is the insider, because you're rarely looking at the people on the inside as a bad actor, but they often have the most power. So they go and blow it out. Well, now you're out of luck because you weren't planning on defending against the people holding the key.
Why would you do that to us, Bev? God, that's so horrible.
and so that's all it is, right?
But you've got to back up for that because you go like, okay, great, she doesn't have access to that one.
Yep.
So nanny. There you go. That's smart. That's what it's a 3, 2, 1. Okay, so you've got one on site, one in the cloud that can basically run your business, and then one that Bev doesn't know about. And what is that expensive? That's
not really. It's everything in the cloud has a cost based on the amount of data it is. It's actually surprisingly cheap. There's not a lot of reason why most business wouldn't be using it, just because it's cheap.
Who do you use for cloud? I mean, do you have are they different all the time, or you got?
No, our primary one is Datto.
Is what?
Is Datto, DATTO.
Okay. Right.
We primarily use them because they are, they're channel only, so MSPs at least don't have to worry about competing against off-the-shelf versions of it.
Oh, okay. So you can only sell it if you're as a vendor.
Exactly.
I see. Okay,
as a vendor.
Okay.
So obviously there's perks with that, but it also keeps it a little bit more controlled.
You get T-shirts and stuff. So T-shirts and stickers and
actually don't.
Things. What? Datto, up your game for God's sake.
I think I'm going to actually bring that up, that I need something like that.
Yeah.
Some vendors are
that
great
guy from
with their
Stargate
merch.
says you should have better T-shirts.
Yeah, like some vendors
You're
give
welcome.
you good stuff, but they don't really.
Right.
But the idea is that's what we use. It's from a cost perspective, it's got the best cost for what you get out of it.
Buck, yeah.
And I don't know too many that have the backup data center. In fact, they're the only ones I'm aware of where, and by backup data centers, what we can't access, and for a reason, right?
So they do that for you.
They do.
Oh, that's smart. So you've got your cloud and you've got your non-cloud.
Yep.
And
in the worst case scenario, if somehow all of that went away, and it's all two-factor, like you can't log into the on-premise device anymore because that was too easy to break. So you have to go through the cloud with two-factor and do all of your work there. But having that backup spot meant for them to offer the ability to protect that data, only they have access to it.
That's smart. Where are they based? They
US based. Yep.
Are most of these things US now?
Yeah, a good portion of them.
Because we should talk about Kaspersky as well, because it's another one that I found interesting. Where I love Kaspersky. I mean, some of the best reports on. In fact, that one that killed the reporter, the one that was used to kill the reporter, one of the best descriptions of how all that worked was done by Kaspersky, and they found a whole bunch of stuff like 0-day. Like first time ever, no one had heard of them. iPhone things.
Yep, the Operation Triangulation.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which is wild.
And that one was neat
Thank you, Gibson. That was another security now for me. Yeah.
What was neat about that one is because of this exploit. If you were even intentionally looking for it, you never would have found it.
Yeah.
The only way they seen it is by watching what the device did. Yeah. Using their SIM, which was, I think it's Kata is what it's called. And so they have their own SIM and security analysts that watch that. And so they actually
now, SIM, just because I know Baz got confused about this, not SIM as in SIM card.
Yeah, SIEM or SCIM.
Right.
And so what it was is their analysts actually watched behavior coming from the phone. So it's another case where watching what a phone is doing instead of looking at the device itself, but what is it actually doing allowed them to detect this because somebody must have been touching that specific memory address.
It's fascinating. And basically this was unlocking the iPhone using what can only be explained as a backdoor, basically, in that obviously it was there, Apple had put it there for some reason.
Yep.
It was undocumented. Entirely undocumented. They had to, as you say, figure it out by what they saw. But so Kaspersky, but dun dun dun, they're Russian.
Yep.
And they're based. He was started by a Russian like KGB guy or something.
He went to a KGB school. Yep.
Yeah. Which again, if we weren't, if talking about Bond villains, we may be the James Bonds. That Putin guy is like straight out of the freaking movies, like villain wise.
He's Dr. No.
Yeah, he really is. He's Dr. No without any of the fun stuff.
Yeah.
So America has basically said, nah, that's it. We don't risk it. I heard an interesting story, which I'll ask you about. Apparently, they were accused of stealing information, security information about breaches, and sending it to Russia. And which is true, except that it's true because a researcher in the States went home, plugged their computer in to the system. Kaspersky went, whoa, there's exploits all over this computer.
Yep.
They locked it down and then sent the offending files to their server for processing.
Yep.
Of course, it turned out that the guy was actually with the NSA or something, and was working on his hacking
Personal
tools
machine.
at home.
Yep.
But that's literally what antivirus software does. Right?
Every company does it.
That's it.
They have to send it somewhere.
Yeah.
Right? So that you're right, and so that was what they call stealing data, but it's a behavior that it doesn't matter which endpoint protection or security company you go with, they're all going to do it. They have to take a file if it's suspicious, and they have to analyze it, and they can't do it on the workstation, so it gets uploaded to wherever. If it's ESA, it's so they one of those countries.
One of the Slavic
if it's CrowdStrike, it might be in the U.S. Like every company does it. And it's just a part of the process.
It's so funny, isn't it, that we with the internet comes this sort of this. I thought we were going to get away from borders. I thought we were going to become like one giant. And I'm not saying the one giant happy planet we're all going to hug and stuff. I'm not a hippie, for God's sake. But the idea that I really felt like we were going to move away from that. But instead, I feel like we've started like splinter netting. Like we're like creating our own little. And so America's response basically was like, this software is no longer allowed to be used in the States? Is that right?
So it started in 2015.
When I break the
just
law,
a ban.
I went with Kaspersky on my computer.
No, because we don't have the ban here.
Okay, right.
So in 2015, they said you can't have it on any government machines after that specific event.
Like TikTok.
Yeah. And then this year, they decided it's just an embargo. You just can't use it. So I think it's September or October. Kaspersky's not even allowed to update anybody who has it. So their stuff will no longer get updates, which basically renders it useless.
Wow.
And then typically what happens after that, we'll see it eventually make its way to Canada the same way, because they always kind of
and you won't be able to. And what are you going to do? Like if you've got as soon as America said this software is a bunch of Putin fans, then you're screwed. That's too bad. I mean, it's too bad. I guess we have to be careful, but I just keep thinking about so in Russia, I guess they have their own Windows. So they wouldn't run Windows there because that's an American company, or they wouldn't run. Well, Linux was developed in America as well, or Unix or whatever it was, or
I think it was in the States with Linus Torvald.
Did
the Linux. I suspect they're still running Windows and Mac. And
that's what I mean. If they're worried about in a way that's the equivalent, which I guess I could understand as well. I definitely I see the concerns of those. You don't want foreign influences, especially that we are basically at war with. Yep. Having direct access to people's computers, I guess it could cause some issues. But still, I don't know.
They do some great strides, which was unfortunate that's the part that never really gets talked about.
No, they were great.
They built transparency centers. You were allowed to vet the code.
Oh, really?
You didn't.
You could look at Kaspersky code and just have.
Yeah, if you signed the appropriate non-disclosure stuff, you were allowed to go and review the code. No other company has opened the curtain of transparency to that degree anywhere. So you got to see the keys of the accounts, and you didn't actually have to send files to there. And so the data center is actually not in there; it's in Sweden.
Right.
So it's in a neutral country too. But you don't even have to do that. You were able to take that stuff, put it in your own data center, and just pull the threat intel into your side.
Wow.
And all of the analysis would happen wherever you wanted it, and never ever go anywhere else. So funny.
But of course, again, it's the idea that there was Russia involved, I guess, is the problem. Yeah. Oh, that's too bad, because it does. I've got to say, there's a number of times I've gone and checked out Kaspersky stuff because it's just fascinating information that they found.
Yeah.
So what do you do now then? What do you do? Because you're using Kaspersky for clients. What's the plan now?
Yep. So we're migrating over to. So we only do MDR solutions, and what that is managed detection response.
Okay.
But with people. So it's not just your endpoint protection. There's also security analysts that watch the telemetry.
Oh, really? There's people looking at this stuff too?
Yep. So the Kaspersky that we use, people were watching it.
Really?
The new product we have,
Yeah.
same thing. So it's an EDR, and then you point that EDR, which collects all of these great logs. It will send it off to a team of security analysts who will then look at that stuff and just say, "Yep, everything's
So
good."
I run a client on here, and then that information the information that it gathers gets sent to the system, this cloud system.
Yep.
And then there are a number of times, for example, with Kaspersky, where I would go to a website and it would say, "Do you want to do that?" And I'd be like, "Yes, I do. That's my server," or whatever it is. But there are other times where I'm like, "Oh, I guess not." But so what's happening there? So log is to this application running on your computer. I go to a website, and then how is it getting between me and that?
So the agent you have on your machine is working like any other endpoint protection. It's got the protections built into
Just
it.
running the whole time.
Just running the whole time.
Okay.
The additional component to that is what happens if you have a lurking threat that you're not aware of. Endpoint protection is designed to
Bev
react.
again, probably, isn't it?
It's always
Yeah,
Bev.
yeah.
So it's designed to react to a virus kicking off. Some kind
Right.
of behavior,
Just
some
ready to go.
mechanism. But having an actual team of analysts, they're not waiting just for things to happen. So AI will also be involved. As I mentioned, there's so much
More and
logs.
more, I'm
So
guessing.
AI helps process them, but people will also do what's called threat hunting. And some of it's automated, some of it's by people. And it's designed to look for stuff that's just sitting there waiting to happen, not waiting for it to happen. It's looking to see where it's hiding. So if you've got a virus sitting there and it's not kicked off any alerts because it's not doing anything, it's set not to do anything maybe for 6 months, it's just sitting there quietly minding its business. Threat hunting is the way to find it before waiting for it to kick off and then you're reacting.
Right.
And so that's why we use that component, because we don't want to be always reacting. We also want a level of proactive.
Yeah, because
security.
ideally you stop it before it happens, as opposed to
Yeah.
I suppose that the AV stuff is basically was in the old days just waiting for it to find it on your computer and go like,
as soon
sorry.
as soon as it goes to do something, AV reacts as that's not right, and it stops it.
Yeah.
The only way to avoid that is you have to find it before it actually tries to do something.
Yeah. Well, that's great. That's fascinating. Okay. I mean, I had a sense of it, but I wasn't entirely sure how it worked. We should see if there's any questions or anything, because there's people, I changed my name. Look, we missed a lot of chats.
I think so.
I told you sometimes I just forget. That's
Yep.
it. What do we got? Cybersecurity in mind. Does this guy answer questions like, is Malwarebytes Premium any good? This guy. Korag's just going straight for the throat here. Been using it for a while. It rarely finds anything, but I also tend to be mega paranoid and using the internet. So, it's a bit specific, but Malwarebytes? I've heard of it. I've
That's
used
a great
it before.
question.
Yeah.
They're a great product.
Korag's now he's like, sorry, I just got here. No, don't worry about Korag. You're the first chat I found. Don't worry about it.
They're a great
Welcome.
product. Nothing against them. If it's not finding anything, it's probably a good thing.
Yeah, isn't that what's supposed to not find things? Isn't that?
If you're doing it right, it's not finding stuff, or you've found really good stuff.
But it's just one of the ones you have to scan your computer with this stuff.
Yeah.
Like you have to manually scan it,
I wouldn't
or
use
set
it
it up
as
to,
an endpoint protection,
Right.
as per se. But it's actually in a lot of tech tool stacks. It used to be something that everybody would grab when they're doing some cleanup on a workstation. It was a great tool to download and put on just for an additional scan. Because if you're not sure that virus got around your endpoint protection, you certainly wouldn't use your endpoint protection to scan for it, because if it got around
it already got around it,
there's
yeah.
a reason. So
Right.
Malwarebytes was one of the ones that a lot of techs would kind of fall back to and run scans from that. It was fantastic.
If we were using a Windows system, I just use Windows because I figured the Windows protection stuff must have better access to everything anyways, right? We were talking about the access to the kernel, but obviously it would have that. But I would have just assumed that Windows would, and I think Gibson on Security Now even recommends that.
Yeah.
But this is on top of that. Then you
Yep.
would need that. Then what's the advantage of running something like Malwarebytes? Then just a different.
Yeah, it's a different one. Everybody has to pick what they trust. Most cases, I would say the Windows Defender nowadays is great for most home users.
Right.
The day of having to buy something extra, unless there's a good reason, most people are probably okay with the built-in Defender.
Right. That's
you
what I've
asked
been
me
doing.
a few years ago, I said no.
Yeah.
Not so good.
Right.
Would I protect my home with it? Some of my personal machines, certainly.
Yeah.
Work machines, not a chance.
Oh,
Even
really?
though,
Yeah.
you
Okay.
know,
All right,
it's
because you're
not
going for
bad.
the full endpoint. Yeah.
Because we do know that, while it's good, it comes up short with ransomware. And that's the problem with a lot of the products. Is they can do some stuff okay,
Yeah,
but the
ransomware is a whole new threat, really.
Yeah, and so we've seen. So the PC security channel is a fantastic one you should check out.
PC security channel?
Yeah, it's on YouTube, and he's always testing all of these different protections.
Oh, there you go.
And he
Okay, good.
scripts all of the known ransomware attacks, and he runs tests against them.
Oh, he's got his own little sandbox? He's just trying?
And you get to watch him do that, and you get to see how they react. And unfortunately, Defender doesn't do so well when it comes to that. So would I protect something important? Probably not.
Interesting. Okay. And what's the difference in cost, like, roughly? What's the,
Well,
like...
Defender's free because it comes with everybody's machine.
Right, as opposed
to home variants of all of the major platforms are typically like $50 or $75 a year, and they're giving you 3 to 5 devices for it.
Right, that's not bad.
So it kind of makes sense to go with a good one if you actually care or think that there's a chance you're going to click on something really bad. It's worth investing in a good endpoint protection.
Okay. So if you want to protect yourself from Bev, it's not bad having... There we go. All right. It's not fear-mongering, it's the truth. If the China commies... Jesus, we're into that already. Commies have your data, they are sharing that data with Putin too. If not, it's not fear-mongering, it's the truth. If China... Well, I mean... Look, I think it's a combination of both. I think we're also in an election year as well, which I think makes a big difference. So I think by making a statement like Kaspersky's out because Russians are bad, I think it's a bit of a combination. So I sort of agree with you, but at the same time, like if we don't think that our enemies are we're gathering stuff on our enemies. Our enemies are gathering, and I don't want to say enemies because in a way, again, it's such a weird way of putting it because I don't like thinking of it like that. But maybe I should say. Not so much our enemies as maybe aggressive governments, like other governments that are out for us. Yes, are obviously going to spy on us in the same way that we're going to go spy on them. So yeah. What else we got? China doesn't have communism, by the way. Corkag is there. Here we go. Here comes we're going to start. We're going to full on fight now. Here we go. All right. So what else we got here? And yet a lot of the big AV companies like ESET are also limiting user choice by dropping their Linux offerings. I love Linux, but it's yet to be the Windows replacement for me. It doesn't quite have all the stuff I'd like. If I had my druthers, I'd be Linux. I love the idea of using Linux for stuff, but it just isn't there for everything. Yeah.
Well, Linux will probably get better and quite frankly, what dominates a lot of the choices for home market is the gamers, really. They drive where all the money goes.
Yeah.
And there's not enough gamers in the Linux ecosphere for developers to start dumping a ton of money into Linux to making it making a variant that's as good as Windows.
It's too bad because I would have thought, I'd have thought Linux would be way more solid at running some of those games if they were actually written for it. I mean, because Windows is you're not a console gamer. You're gaming on the It's like I was like, Baz, you can't be a console gamer. You're not allowed to. You have to build a PC. But yeah, I do feel like Windows is not the most stable operating system with gaming. They're constantly you get an update on a game, the new and latest game, and then it's like goodbye, goodbye system. What else we got? I'm gonna go back here. Hello everyone, by the way. Sorry, I've not been looking at the chat because James is too interesting and Bev is too evil. So, what do we got? So I'm going to see what else we got in here. Just says not Taylor. So I'll phrase future questions as does not Taylor. Nicely put, Corgrag. Corgrag is fitting in right in. For someone who's just shown up, they're doing incredibly well. And also all of the chats seem to be, what else we got here? Thanks so much for supporting the channel. Oh, did they do something, Cal? Hi, Cal. Cal is my hammer. Cal is my security hammer. You talk about she is my Kaspersky. No one gets away with anything on this channel without Cal getting in there. Okay, I've seen some of those. If you see something interesting, let me know. I'm just, it's all interesting, of course. I just,
Anyone know who this guy is?
Anyone know who this guy is? My name's David. I was on a television series a number of years ago. This is my friend James. MTX Technologies, yes, out of Cambridge, Ontario. And we met on LinkedIn, and I've been bothering him ever since. Okay, what else we got in here? Wasn't the SSH thing an insider job? What's that? What's going on? There's a chat going on. GeoGuessr community is a great example of how someone can discover with very little info.
Yes.
They can get dropped at a random location in the world on Google Maps and find out what place it is with ridiculous accuracy. And those are just hobbyists. Oh, interesting.
Have you never tried GeoGuessr?
No.
So what it is? It's a web-based game, and essentially,
It's a game?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's based on like the Google Maps Street View thing. So I've actually played it many times. It's a ton of fun, and you can lose a lot of time. So you'll get dropped into, and there's different stuff now that they have. You can get dropped to a famous place and all sorts of stuff.
Oh, I think I have some.
But you get dropped in some random place. It could be a street in the middle of nowhere.
And you
maybe.
can look around, and you have to figure out where you
Where
are.
you are
I think
based
we
on
did.
that.
I think Baz made me do this once. I never.
Absolutely incredible. Such a fun thing to play. And to their point, people are so clever. They'll be like, oh, that tree only grows in this particular part of the world, and based on this, and all, and somehow they pinpoint with such accuracy.
This is our kind of nerddom
crazy.
right here. This is a game worth playing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fun. And also, what I also love about that as well is we tend to be rather insular in North America. Like we tend to think of things like the film industry is notorious for this, where they'll talk about like there's the film industry and then there's the international film industry. I'm like, excuse me. Hollywood may think it's the center of the world, but there's people making movies all over the place, international. So it's kind of good to get out, even if you're not getting out. The idea of like being, acclimatizing yourself to different environments and different countries and different, the fact that the signs are in, Arabic instead is just fascinating to me. Okay. All right, Gessler, thank you very much. Malcolm, thank you very much for that. That's great. Unbreakable in-house. What? Hi, David, and everyone. Who is this? Someone else? Because I have to introduce James like every 5 seconds so that you guys can keep up. Come on. First time chat from Malcolm. Very good. Oh my God. I often browse Twitch while working to find a coworker to vibe with while working from home. Can't believe Rodney McKay is online. Well, certainly an older, more broken version of him anyways. Well, welcome. You'll fit right in. Most social media apps are kind of locked down now. AI companies scraping. Scraping.
Too much data.
Too much data for free. Oh yeah. I got to say, one of the things I love doing is scraping data. I know that's a horrible thing to say, but my earliest experiences with the internet were things like, I remember I worked for a lawyer and he wanted a directory of lawyers that were related to a specific field that he was in. So I wrote a program that just went, that just basically you go to a site and it would just churn, I think it was a Perl program or something way back then, and it would just churn through and just pull out all the email addresses and stuff. And then of course it became a bad thing to do. You don't do that anymore. But still, for trying to put together and analyze things, it's kind of interesting. The scraping stuff. Python is great for that, by the way. Oh, Jane is home. Hello, Jane. We're just podcasting, so don't say anything rude.
And the thing is, anything free, you have to assume you're paying somehow.
You are
free.
the price.
You're the price.
That's true.
You're
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, very true. Okay, true. Artificial general intelligence doesn't truly exist yet. The funny thing about the AI debate, which I'm sorry, I know I always go down this rabbit hole. I can't resist it because I personally welcome our AI overlords. Is that I feel like whenever we master something, or whatever AI or whatever we call it, machine learning masters something, we go like, yeah, but that's just this. You know what I mean? So it's like we have chatbots now that can trick humans into thinking they're humans.
Yep.
But that's just a chatbot. I'm like, but that 10 years ago or 20 years ago,
unheard of.
That was freaking, you just passed the Turing test. You were like, we're screwed, dead.
Yeah.
Give it up now, And now it's like, chatbots, they'll talk you into anything.
Yep.
What else we got? A subscription from Copilot, maybe even. Thank you very much. That's very, very kind of you. I hope I'm here in 15 months, for that matter. Morning, David. Awesome to see you again, isn't it? Car Ross, how are you? What else we got here? The original Xbox had something similar way back Wednesday. Yeah, stuff like that happens as a programming thing. odd, sure David Heal, but if you need to have something stop, let it crash.
Shoot the patient before he dies. That's brilliant.
That'll do it.
If you're a doctor, it's a great way to keep recurring business.
Please, Clumsy, please don't be a doctor. Please, whatever you do, if you're thinking about going into anything, don't go into medicine. You are pretty awesome as McKay. I'll thank you very much. But not as a human. See that? That was a backhanded compliment. Well, at least I liked you as McKay. Now I have to watch you as an old man getting old and talking about cybersecurity. Cal, what are you doing subscribing, Cal? Oh, my God. She always does that. She subscribes. I think it must give her some power or something. Phasmo is great. I'm Dead by Daylight girly myself.
Dead by Daylight's good.
Dead by Daylight is kind of fun, I got to say. Phasmo is, I guess, the cool, hip way of saying phasmophobia, partially because I can't say phasmophobia. Okay, we should do a Phas group. Look at that, Lizzie Best. You've already got a fan, another fan, because of this, hello, David and guest. So they're really
guest, yeah.
They're really going to hit me on this, aren't they? Going to be like, is that you're not Rachel? Do some stunts. Less phasmophobia. Boy, we're way back on this then. Okay, so I should go back to my chat and see what's going on now. How's your Unreal game progressing? I haven't done any programming on it at all, although I did just recommend it to Bev because she was stuck doing some Unity stuff. Not that Unity's bad or anything, there's some good Unity stuff out there as well. Have you played with, there's another one, Merlin or something, or what's it called? It's another,
I don't think I've heard of it.
someone in the hell was that? Jane, have you been attacked by the dog?
No.
Jane's home and trying to be quiet. That's always very noisy, just so we all know. Okay, you're only 56, so a little above my stepdad. That's not old. Corkrag, thank you very much. Not that old.
But old is still in there.
Old
so
is still in there.
You're not away
that
from
old.
It.
You're not dead yet. Hello again, long time no see. All right, does anyone have any questions for James? Like, techie stuff. You're right. I'm a liar. What you right? I'm a liar. Just because you said I'm a liar, it must be so. Jeez. Oh, are they fighting? Is there fighting going on? Windows and Linux inside WSL is the winner in my opinion. Best of both worlds in a single box. Windows plus Linux inside WSL. Does that mean anything to you?
Yeah, I'm not sure what they mean by that. I would assume they're talking of something virtual or dual boot.
Well, because isn't Windows now embracing Linux? There is some kind of a...
Actually, I know what they're talking about. So, yes, you actually have Linux now in, like, Linux code accepted in Windows.
Oh, so you can run Linux stuff in Windows?
Linux commands.
I'd rather run Windows things in Linux. But I guess that's
the
probably
smart
why...
way. But Microsoft has adopted Linux code within their operating system. I completely forgot about that.
That's kind of good that they're doing that. I mean, there is a lot of... I love... Every so often I'll just go and play with, like, Mint Linux or Kali Linux or something like that, just for goofing around stuff. But by the way, do you play with any other hacking tools you use? Is there hardware stuff that you... Because you were saying you like going to these shows and seeing all the stuff that they're doing and things. But are there have you played with like the Flipper Zero or any of that kind of stuff?
No, I haven't played with that. So I have been very fortunate in that I've had access to the Kaspersky Intel portal. It's a threat intel portal, and that thing's tremendously powerful.
Not anymore, you don't.
For a little bit
American
longer.
government, yeah.
Can
you scrape it quickly?
Right. But so some of our vendors have very unique tools for doing these types of things where you can actually go and inject files in and you can see a full breakdown of what the file's trying to do, what processing touches.
Right.
And that kind of stuff. And you can check websites for how secure they are. So some of those tools are really quite cool.
And there must be... So this new company that you're working with now... Instead of Kaspersky, do they have the same kind of tools available?
They'll have their variants on it. A lot of it we don't necessarily get access to yet.
Oh, okay, right, okay.
We had a special relationship with Kaspersky just because we ran their most advanced threat protection.
Okay.
So it unlocked certain stuff. Now we are doing the same thing with this other company, their most advanced threat protection, but the tools that are available, they just don't.
They're not there yet. Right, I see. And I'm guessing they get more expensive the more access you have to that stuff as well. I'm sure. So, oops, I don't want a software update, or do I? Am I being hacked right now? All right, how's your Unreal game progress? What has got? Eliza passed the Turing test in the 60s. Oh, interesting. Listen what the Z was saying. So that was that Eliza, I believe, was like a psychiatrist bot. It was really creepy. Like, how does that make you feel? And how does that? I think that's what.
It's an interesting question.
What do you got?
what do you think? So, Games Night Media, James, what do you think is more secure, Windows or Mac? And I have an interesting answer to that.
Uh-oh.
Windows is better looked at from a security standpoint, so people are more apt to protect it. Mac is kind of more secure, but the problem is it's also that illusion of security that makes it, in a lot of cases, less secure. Because you ask anybody with a Mac, well, what are you running for antivirus on your Mac? And their first answer, just like Linux, is there's no viruses for it.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely not the case anymore. There was a time, sure, that passed, but that's not true anymore. The problem is the mindset there. Most people think that I have a Mac, I don't need protection. So from that regard, Mac is less secure, but overall, it's more secure.
And it's still running a form of Linux anyways, or Unix. It's BSD.
It's closer to Unix than it is to Linux.
Yeah. So it's going to be susceptible to those as well. And also, the more market share they get, the more of a target. And also, you think about it, I mean, this one of my podcasts talks about like the iPhone and Apple as the top 1% of the world.
Yep.
Like, it's the most expensive tech. It's used by all of the most successful, rich companies and people on the planet. It's going to be a target. Like, it's just a matter of what they find.
And the biggest problem with things like Mac is just how locked down the stuff is, right? And it kind of goes back to what I was saying with Windows, where they protect at the kernel level. They have access to all of that stuff to really properly protect
No one
it.
has access to that.
Nobody has access to anything Apple.
Yeah.
Which,
and as it turns out, they had a backdoor in their freaking iPhone.
and they had a backdoor into
So there
it.
you go. No, and multiple iPhones, by the way.
Security is based on being able to see everything.
Right.
And if you can't see what's behind the curtain, you have an illusion of security, and maybe it is. I don't want to say that it isn't. It's
Well, and Apple
just
tells
fact
us
we
how
just don't
secure they
know.
are and tells it that they don't use our information. But the reality is, as soon as that, which is already a little sus, gets, as soon as that is undermined, you basically have the trust is gone, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, what else we got? Whose question was that, by the way?
That was
Games Night Media. Okay, very good. What does Go for Fluffernuts got one? Question: is there a surefire way to protect yourself from email being hacked?
Don't have email. That's probably the best way.
Start using mail, but even that can
Even
get
that's-
intercepted.
yeah.
Eaten by a dog.
Yeah, there is no perfect answer for that. It's putting the right tools in.
And what do you use? So, what do you use for email? You just use standard like are you using Outlook, or do you have a specific?
On work stuff, it's all of our systems are either protected with a variant of. There's a different defender in the cloud, so to be between that, and we also have a SaaS protection that also sits in there.
Oh wow!
So we use certain mechanisms that protect that stuff and scan it and do all the.
And so that basically just interacts with whatever email platform you're using.
Yeah,
basically, but you don't like host your own or do any of that. You're not using any of the. I heard this is some like secure email accounts. So I always get nervous because as soon as you call something a secure email account, it makes me. I'm like, it just feels like it's instantly a target. I feel like Gmail, they're already going to be looking at all of my stuff anyways. Because Google is just. I mean, basically, I'm getting ads based on whatever I send in an email.
Yep.
So they're pretty slimy that way, anyways. But I feel like they're probably pretty good at locking it down. I would assume, but. Should one have, like, if I'm using Gmail, should I have something else as well?
From personal use, Gmail's fine. Google does a really good job at securing that stuff. Same with Microsoft. If you're using just Outlook for personal use, they do a really good job at protecting that stuff for personal use. And then as you get into the business side, there's other more enhanced protections you put in front. Educate yourself. That's the best way. Know not to click on links. If you
Oh my God! But see, I fight that all the time because eventually there's stuff like if I got a subscription to a newsletter, then I click on those links.
Yep.
Should I not be doing that?
So if you're expecting something, it doesn't hurt. So you can hold your cursor over a link to see where it actually goes.
But you always get like some giant number that's all their marketing crap added. And
Yep.
all.
You really want the first part to
Right.
make sure it's the right domain for what you're expecting.
It's not obviously going to it's not a .ru Russia site or China or something.
If you were, we'll use Bleeping Computer as an example. If you were on a mail list and they sent you emailed ads and stuff and a link to a story and you want to click that story and you cursor over it, and it's not
it says
bleepingcomputer.com.
evilbev.com.
Evilbev.com.
Yeah.
It's probably not come from Bleeping Computer or they've been compromised.
Yeah, nice try, Bev.
And that's another
Rogue
point
Bev.
to it. Even if you get an email from somebody you know, but it's out of character or unusual, and it has links. Don't
Jane,
click
you
it.
can't click anything I ever send you because nothing I send you is in character or out of. I'm constantly like, I must be. Oh my god.
That's where your security system is. Don't open anything I email you.
That is a very high tech thing. Here's my approach to that. As I go, like, you can send me all the emails you want. When it's important, I know you just come and get mad at me.
That works.
And it works really well. That's my security. Because I don't trust Jane. She could go rogue too, Beth. All right. Anything else? Windows subsystem for Linux. Windows subsystem. Oh, is that what the MS? Oh, that's what WSL. This is what I love about doing live streams. And if you were talking about wanting to do something like podcasty and cybersecurity wise, there's something really nice about the live aspect of it because you get, people argue and tell you you're old and stuff, but at the same time, there's always someone who knows like some little thing, and it's great for that. No fighting, just some dweeb who argues by calling someone a liar and not providing. Yeah, someone's fighting. Corin's fighting again. All right, thank you. Yes, there's always someone who's going to call you a liar and say that you're not actually. Yeah, I'm actually reading a fascinating, and by reading I mean listening to it in my earbuds. A book called The Deceptive Mind, and it's critical thinking, and it is. I am stunned by it. Like it just how easily fooled we are. How our brains are tricked by our own brains. How our eyes don't work. Our memories don't work. And the more and more, like I always thought of like critical thinking is important. I'm like yes, always make sure you're not being told nonsense.
Yep.
But now I'm listening to this book. I'm like, oh my god, like. We need like at least 3 credible sources. We need to, you need to know about your own innate biases and what, it's like, I don't, again, talk about sipping at the fire hose, like trying to get good information now that anyone can provide you with information is extraordinary. Deceptive Mind is great. I would absolutely recommend it. It's what I listen to on my Burn and Learns, but I haven't been doing I've been going live with my Burn and Learns lately. I just do the exercise now. What's more secure? Windows subsystem, I would trust nothing from Kaspersky ever. Really? I would trust really. So that's I don't feel that way. Trend Micro XDR. Oh, I've heard about this a little bit. This was the one where they've got some kind of a certificate that doesn't like some kind of like lame. They've got some certificate system. Anyway, you'll have to explain it to us. You'll have to give us a little bit more information, Mr. Mays, if you wouldn't mind. James, not Taylor. They're still on. Correct, still on that. Microsoft actually fully embraced Linux. They're open source contributors and everything. Oh, really? Oh, that's cool. I am live on both platforms today. I'd like eventually. There's a way I haven't figured it out yet, but there's a way where you can go live and do this, and it goes to Twitch, and it goes to YouTube, and it goes to. It can go to X and all the other Facebook Lives and all that kind of stuff. So
you know what it is?
No, I not heard of that. That's interesting.
yeah, well, us cool kids who know stuff, we're I can't remember the name of the service. I'll have to look it up, but I don't know if you have to pay for it. But our Security Now guy, Leo Laporte, just because he's moved back to his
Cottage or whatever.
his attic.
His attic.
He's gone from a studio to his attic.
Yep.
And I kind of feel bad for him because he obviously really loved having the studio, and now he's in the attic and people aren't around. One of the things I love when I get a chance to sit down like this and exhaust people like I'm doing to you now, it's just nice to do it live because it's nice to have the same person in the same room. I really noticed it with Rachel and I where we hadn't chatted for a while, but sitting down and doing it like this was just so much fun. Like it just, and I think that people enjoy that as well. Macs rarely have antivirus. Yep, true. A Rogerian therapist bot. A Rogerian? What the hell is that? Oh, that was the one that they said was
the Turing test.
Yeah, the Turing test. Why would I need to provide facts to prove? Oh God, they're still fighting. Okay, never mind. Never mind. Kids, get along. What if Twitter shares your data with Putin? Well, we're already sharing our data with Putin, aren't we? On that, basically, if you put stuff out on social media, that's the whole OSINT thing. That's the OSINT thing, right? That's something I find fascinating as well. If you need to find out anything about anybody, you go on to social media, you can find out what their address is. Maybe not their address, but you can find out their birth date and their kids' names and their first cat and all that kind of stuff. And then if you're basing your security on that stuff, it's not secure anymore.
Yeah. And people give their data away freely.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times do you see these Facebook things? How old were you when this movie came out? Or what was the big movie when you were...
Oh, interesting.
So they use these clever little things to make you want to answer questions, and really they're just collecting data about you using clever means.
That's it.
What was the biggest movie when you were 10, right? And then you'll want to contribute, so you'll go and you'll look at it, and all of a sudden now they know how old you are because that was the big movie of that year.
Yeah,
so
of course.
Clever ways of being able to figure out, like, it's just basic information that you want on people.
It's weird being an actor, and I think I see like streamers struggling with this as well, influencers and stuff, because there's a level of fame that comes with stuff that so a lot of stuff is available to people that wouldn't be known about other people. I mean, do you do much to secure yourself for that when you're online? Are you on camera on face on face camera screen? Words hard. I think I've been straight. How long have we been going? I'm fading. 2 hours. Holy crap!
Wow, doesn't feel that long, does it?
No, isn't it? Isn't that weird?
That's the thing when you start talking anything tech.
Oh my god, forget it. Yeah.
Clock goes away.
No, that's it. But when you go live, you're on camera, and you don't do anything to like stop people from seeing who you are or finding out who you are or that kind of stuff.
No, but I don't say like any personal stuff or anything like that. I make sure that.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a hard one though, isn't it? Because I mean, I overshare all the time. It's like my nature. By nature, I'm an oversharer. In fact, most people don't want to hear most of the stuff I tell them. But from a security standpoint, I'm weirdly very private about stuff at the same time. I don't. Yeah. I mean, it's so if people want to send you stuff, what do they do? Do you have a PO box or something, or what do you like? Do you do that stuff?
So I've created like an account that is all tied to that and has no ties to me. So anytime
that's
somebody
really
wants
smart.
to like donate or whatever, it goes to that account and has no ties to mine.
Oh, that's really smart. That's really smart because mine's all. I've got this. I'm a miasma of like I'm all over the place online. I've got like because I'm doing Tech Bandits or I've got like the new one. I want to talk to you about this actually. So I've got this domain freaks.com, which I've had for years because we were originally going to do a TV series about hackers, and I thought Freaks was a cool name for it, and it was again it's what got me into this stuff.
Like
so,
PH Freaks,
yeah,
like
PH
phone
Freaks,
freaking?
yeah. So it's freaks.com, and what I thought I would do is just turn it into like a cybersecurity site, just the stuff that I'm interested in, and lists of podcasts and cool stuff and things like that. But yeah, so that's one of the things I was actually thinking about doing with the Freaks thing. Was I just thought because that was my introduction to stuff, and it just opened up this world to me. I just thought it'd be kind of fun to sort of give back in a way by putting. But that's again, they all just go through my own email addresses. Like I should really have like David@freaks.com or not even David.
Yeah.
I could be I don't know.
Info.
Evil Bev. I could be Rogue Bez or info.
Yeah.
Such a square. Come on, info.
I get the boring stuff.
All right, I should wrap this up because God, I've more than overstayed my stay. My stay here. What do we got? Not the greatest job at junking mail that comes from incorrectly configured SMTP servers that failed. I've got to figure that out. The DKIM, DMARC, and SPF.
Simple stuff.
Is it simple stuff?
SPF. Typo in there, but yeah, it's simple stuff to do.
And what does it do?
So SPF is basically your mail record. That's
right.
Where you're sending your mail from. Then DMARC and DKIM, essentially, it's more designed to tell other people that you are who you are. So what you could do on a lot of mail filters, you can just set a flag that if they don't have DKIM and DMARC, throw it away. And what that does is it helps reduce a lot of spoofing. The problem is
but I don't have it.
Nobody has it set up correctly,
right.
So you're also going to lose a tremendous amount of useful email.
Yeah, like me. Do it.
But it's not difficult to set up. It's like, let's say you use a mailing service.
Okay.
And you also use your exchange online and all that. All of that just has to be captured in there to say, yes, I approve email coming from here because that's allowed. And my email also, or my mail comes from here. So you just have to capture all that so people know if it's coming from any of those sources. That record tells them that you've approved that it's you.
And but where is this being done? Where is this? Is it at the name server? Like
DNS.
Oh, it's right. What?
It's all DNS.
Oh, it is part of DNS. Oh, so it's Cloudflare or whatever I'm using for the.
Yeah. So wherever your DNS records, they're just text records.
Oh, okay. And what are you giving them?
Text
Some
records,
kind of
CNAME, and a few things like that.
So what are you giving them? Some kind of like encrypted code that says you're who you say you are, or something?
No, you're just validating. So let's say you use a mailing service. They'll have their list of either a host name that ties to a block of IPs, or they'll have a single IP or a single host name, and you take that and you combine that into your records. So then your record might be It can come from this domain, it can come from this domain, and all those things
I
in
see.
there.
Okay.
And so
All
that
right.
allows people to put filters that if they get anything that doesn't pass those checks, can't be you.
It's out. Right. Okay, got it. I see. Okay, cool. All right. Well, thank you for that, Malcolm again. Was it Malcolm? No, it was Mr. Mace. Mr. Mace, thank you for that. Linus Tech Tips got hit with a phishing attack and it worked. Yeah, but that makes sense, Clumsy, because that phishing is like, to me, is like you say, is the social engineering side of it.
Yeah.
It's not, that is not a hack. That is just social engineering.
Yeah, it starts with a social engineering attack that will often follow a technical one after, maybe.
That's
if
how
they
Jane
even need to.
That's how Jane got her Instagram stolen. Like, don't listen to Jane. I mean, do listen to Jane, but not on her thing because it got taken. But yeah, so basically, you're just and that is getting better and better with AI as well, where I feel like they can target it so specifically. I've got this person on Facebook that one of my fabulous Stargate folks has been tracking down, who is basically going onto these various chats and stuff and saying like, oh my God, David, if you like talking to David, I had a great chat with him over on Telegram or Signal or whatever it is, and they'll get them off the platform that they're on in order to have a chat with who they think is going to be me, and it's not me. So, and I don't know. I mean, I don't feel like I can really fight that other than to say, I don't do that.
You just put out that message publicly.
Yeah.
Another neat one, and this is kind of a scary story, and it's twisted on a bit of an old one, but with deepfakes now being the way they are. So there used to be a trend a long time ago where you would get a phone call, and they would claim to have one of your loved ones kidnapped and send all this kind of money.
Yeah.
And you'd hear some muffled voice in the background, but you could never really make out who it was. With deepfake now, the way that works, imagine getting that call, and we actually know somebody who had this happen, and they didn't know what to do. So as they're driving to the police station, which they were told not to, they're trying to reach. So what'll happen is if you've got a loved one on vacation or you're on vacation, they'll find somebody who knows you, and because you don't check your phone very often on vacation, then you use deepfake to say, I've kidnapped so-and-so. And if you go to the police or you don't go send me the gift cards or money or any of that, we'll do something to them. And then if you want proof, well, guess what? That's your voice. And all they need is like a 10-second voicemail, and now they're recreating your voice. And all of a sudden now it's what they think is you talking. So how do you protect against that?
We had a tech bandit. It happened with a tech bandit.
Yeah.
So we had one of our tech bandit kids someone called or emailed or something their grandparents.
Yep.
And said that this kid's in trouble. He needs a bunch of money, and they had a voice that sounded like him on it. It really creeped me out. We don't do like the online tech bandits really anymore, but it really freaked me out because it's like, holy crap! Like you got to be pretty evil rogue bev to be doing that kind of stuff.
And so the best defense for that?
Yeah.
Develop a safety word or a secret word.
I keep meaning
with
to
your
do
family and close people, and sure they can mimic the voice. And you say, "What's the word?"
But let's face it: if someone starts asking for like a ransom for me, Jane ain't gonna give it to them. It's not. It doesn't matter what code I give them. It's not gonna. Jane's not. It's not happening.
Yeah.
No. All right. That's the code thing is. I've heard that before. I think that's absolutely genius. It's like a safe word so that you know that when I'm asking for money, because once again I blocked myself out of the house or something, Jane knows that
Without that word.
Yeah, if I say Putin, I'm, whatever. It's not Putin, just so you know. If you say Putin, you'll probably get in trouble in my house. I should wrap up. Jim Browning, too. He does videos all about scammers. Oh, I know. Jim Browning's amazing, actually, the stuff. You've seen that where he'll like hack into?
Yep.
Oh, fantastic stuff.
Love it.
uBlock Origin is getting worse. Oh, yeah, uBlock Origin, that's the
Pop-up blocker.
Yeah, yeah. I don't use one. Baz uses one.
I use uBlock Origin.
Do you?
Yep.
It's, I think this Cory Doctorow said it was the largest mass, denouncement of a technology. So many people use ad blockers that it's basically the public saying, we don't want advertising. We don't let's just get rid of advertising. It would be a better solution than.
But
trying to get around
YouTube's
it.
now breaking if you have it on there.
Oh, see, I pay for YouTube now. Because Google is.
They'll still probably break if you don't turn off the
Oh, interesting. So I've got I literally don't use it, but for some reason I feel like I deserve those ads. I actually pay for YouTube because I just find I I just prefer not to see ads. I just can't. It drives me crazy. Anyways, another extension buffing it. What's that? Okay. All right. I think we should wrap up because God knows there's lots of stuff going on here, which would be, I'm sure, fascinating. Now we can scam your relatives. Yep, you go, Elizabeth. Oh my God, it takes Elizabeth. Can't rely on caller ID. Yeah, that is a big one, Mr. Mays. That's a really good point. A lot of people who aren't nerds like us think that if a number pops up and it says that they're from the tax department, but you can just spoof that. Like it's just that you can pretend that. I mean, it's the tool, as you say, the tools that are out there are, I mean, crazy cool.
It's not even that hard. Like our phone system in the office, so we host our own phone system, and I can have anything come up as caller ID. I can put Red Canada. I can put.
Don't tell her that she's gonna be rogue. She's gonna be rogue. Bev
She's got her whole business there. If I can't make the trillions on the bad side, she can.
Yeah, that's true. You're working both sides of it. It's perfect. You got evil rogue Bev on one side and you on the other.
Yep.
She's making trillions. You're making billions. It's great.
Yep.
It's all good. James, thank you so much for this. I mean, and for everything, honestly, because I've been picking James's brains for a while now, and James is very kind. Set us up with Connor and him set me up with an old Dell server, which I've been really having fun bashing away at, almost literally in some cases. And then one day you'll bring me the other power cable. But James and I share also an ability to organize when it comes to certain aspects of our lives. We're not so good at that because we much more enjoy talking and having fun about this stuff. So everyone, advertising is the biggest scam in history. Thank you, Lincoln S. Stern. That's a good one to leave on. Do check out that the deceptive mind thing because it's fascinating. All right, everyone. Thanks to James. Let's say thanks to James. Say thanks to Bev, and no thanks to evil Bev. And until we geek again, I'll say what is it? What do I normally say? Be brave, be kind, be brilliant. Cheerio and huzzah! Talk to you later. Thanks very much, everyone. Bye. I don't know how to hang up, so I could.